Here, we'll get the dice going, get the merchandise flowing. Okay, just got back from Zuber's One Rental at a Time seminar. One of the funnest events that I have been to. I mean, I've gone to a few of them now, these economic conventions, and this particular one was focused in on real estate. If you are not familiar with Zuber's One Rental at a Time, you should check out the YouTube channel. I guess I should have posted a link before I started the video or before I started the live stream. But if you have any troubles finding it, just come back to this video and I will put a link down in the description. I spoke on stage at the keynote position Saturday night at 5 o'clock. I went on stage. I'm not sure how many people were there. I'm going to guess maybe 300, maybe more. I'm not sure exactly how many people had attended, but it was quite a packed house for sure. High energy. Everybody was just really, it was really engaging. Everybody was like sharing phone numbers, communications, very, very much real estate oriented. I mean, everybody there was focused on real estate. I was the only one there who did not do my presentation was not real estate focused. As you know what I do. I did the 4 economic theories. But anyway, really, really well received. I mean, so many people came up, shook my hand, got a picture with me. It was really awesome. And then Zuber presented these for all the speakers, and it was so cool. This thing is really awesome. It got me pulled out at TSA, but that's okay. It was totally worth it. Look, I get this championship belt. See that? Isn't that cool? Look at that. It's like heavy. This thing is like, I don't know, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. I don't know how heavy it is. It's really heavy, but it's really awesome. It has my name on it. Has the One Rental at a Time down there below. Super cool. Thank you, Mike. This was such a great event. I had so much fun doing it. So, but yeah, I talked the 4 economic theories and the credible threats, and then finished it off with the average inflation rate over time and my theory on that and how that works. And like I said, it was super well received, and I just had a great time. All-nighter was an all-star. He picked me up at the airport, dropped me off, basically took care of all accommodations. I mean, he was there hanging out with Matthew and Dion and Mike and everybody else. It was just like, I mean, it was like it was like hanging out with friends again. Like, I haven't hung out with friends in a long time, and it was like hanging out with friends. That's really what it was, you know? It kind of just dawned on me, you know? I haven't done something like that in so long, and I couldn't even describe what it was like, but that's what it was. So anyhow, yeah, isn't it? Let me read through some of these comments real quick. Hey, good morning, Brody. We got 78 people watching with 17 likes. Go hit that like button as soon as you get in. Hit the thumbs up. All right. Yeah, y'all. Woo. Colin 9. Finally catching a live stream. Hey, right on, Todd. It's great to see you here. How do you Americans celebrate President's Day? Oh, is that why we're not working today? It was a great speech. Well, thank you, Manuel. Thank you very much. Yeah, like I said, it was well received. And you know, a lot of times when I come off with these theories and stuff, I don't know how well people are going to receive them, because a lot of times I've even had people call me a Fed apologist and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, good Lord, I just want to say it the way it is, you know, and not put them in this evil light, but just look at it the way it really functioning, the way it really functions, and then, you know, be able to position ourselves so that we can deal with it. If we think of them as an evil organization and they're going to destroy us, then that's exactly what's going to end up happening. So that's kind of the point. I can't help it. I see fingerprints on this thing, so I want to polish it all up. But that's kind of the point of today's video. How many we got here? 93. Awesome. Cool. 4 minutes into it. So not wasting too many people's time. I just want to kind of get started on what my thoughts were here today, because I was sharing this with my wife, Sarah, earlier. And, you know, when it comes to understanding what happens here within the economy, it really makes a lot of sense to understand Cantillon effect and the Gresham's law and Triffin's dilemma. And then you can really start piecing together the story. And ultimately, the United States should face tough love. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. But the answer to it isn't any better than what we have experienced, at least not in my opinion. So, I kind of related it down to like just an example. I was just like, I told my wife, I'm like, okay, here, let me kind of like see if I can do it like this. And she's really good about just sitting there smiling. My wife is the queen of smile and nod. That's one of the reasons why I have such a great YouTube channel, is because I can sit there and, practice with her, and she'll just like, oh, great job, baby, go for it. Anyhow, so I said to her, I said, okay, imagine like we're on a gold standard, right? And we have this community here, and we have a bunch of gold that's rolling around here. Everybody has it, and it seems to be well distributed. And you have a business cleaning houses, right? And she was just like, okay. And I said, so you go around, you have a bunch of clients, and you clean their houses once a week, and you get paid in gold. But now you want to save your gold up because you have some kind of bigger dream. You have an idea that you want to, go with, but it's going to take an abundance of money that's beyond just what you're getting from your regular clientele. So you start hoarding on to some of this gold. Now, what ends up happening is that it's going to start leaving less transactable gold out there for everybody else. And so now when she goes to go to work for these clients, they're going to be like, I'm sorry, I don't really have any money. I can't, hire you any longer. So I'm sorry, I can't, you're fired, And so now this hoard of gold is sitting there, and she doesn't have the ability to now provide for herself, with the clients that she once had. So you got to take that gold and say, go and buy the things that you need, which is a little piece at a time. While you're trying to find the clients, this gold is getting redistributed back out to everybody because you're hungry, you need necessities, you got your life you got to go on with. And so pretty soon that gold goes back out to everybody. You're broke, have no jobs. And then pretty soon somebody says, hey, I got a little bit here and I need my house clean. You want a job? And you get your first client back. And this is the business cycle that ends up taking place with gold. Now, I know that was way oversimplified in it, but that's really ultimately what happens on a grand scale, especially when you look at it from a global aspect of things. So here you are in the 30s, you've run out of gold, right? Because you got like a limited amount of transactions that you can do with it. And, there's some other issues, so I'm going to kind of highlight over this stuff, but I just kind of want to give it into the theory aspect of things. So you think about it, it's just like, so you're at that moment, right, where the gold needs to be redistributed. Right? The hoarding has happened, like the production's ramped up, you got a hoard of the gold, you did whatever service, whatever it is, you got the hoard of gold now, and it needs to be redistributed out because there's not enough available to go out there for all the transactions that people want to do, right? Because if it's like a limited amount, there's only so much that can happen. So then the little pieces of paper start to come out in order to facilitate this trade. So this is the moment that it starts to take place, right? What do? Do you go through the business cycle where it says, hey, you're going to have to, basically hand that gold back out to everybody, or else there's nothing going to happen. There's going to be no economic events, because economic events is a transaction no matter how you look at it, right? So either the redistribution has to start to happen, which is not going to be very comfortable. Everybody has to lower their standard of livings. There's, all kinds of like depressionary effects that come from it, or you can issue out the slips of paper that then keep the transactions going. Here's the problem with it is that if you do the new pieces of paper that come in, that's new money that comes into the system, right? So instead of facing the tough love and saying, okay, listen, you're going to have to give up all the gold in your way of life and all the things that you got going on, and you're going to have to suffer a little bit through all this while we get the, distribution happen. Or you can have these pieces of paper and you can continue on with your way of life. And everybody says, yeah, that's the way I want to do it. I want to continue on with my way of life. See, they don't even know that that's what they wanted. They didn't really care about the pieces of paper. They just want to do the transactions, right? And so since they don't really know the difference between paper and gold, because the paper was exchangeable for gold, they were like, hell, let's do it, right? Let's do the paper, and everybody's happy with this because now we all get to do these transactions and we get to trade them for gold. So what's the problem? Yeah. So everybody's doing these transactions. Problem is the new money that comes in, right? It's new money. It's a lot of it. And now, if you understand what happens when new money comes into the system, you'll start to understand that how this is going to create an issue that is going to get not only compound and grow worse, but then there's no real reversal to it without everybody just falling into misery, right? So now, when we think about what happens when new money comes into the system, so we got this new money that comes into the system, and the people who are getting that new money, this is the Cantillon effect part of it, right? The people who are getting that new money, it's almost impossible to stop human nature from taking place, right? It's instinctual stuff that begins to happen, right? You got the new money. I want a nicer house, I want a nicer car, I want nicer clothes, and I want 2 ribeyes, right? This is what's going to happen every single time, no matter what anybody gets the money. There might be a handful of people who are like, nah, I'm a little bit smarter than that, but you're like, one of the handful of people out there who are actually smart with it. Almost everybody does the same thing, and they want to go and increase their standard of living and enjoy that new money because that's the way it works, right? And that will happen on a gold standard or a fiat standard or anything else. It's like, that's just human nature. So when we think about that new money now coming into the system, if you continually pour that new money into the system, what's going to happen is that the people who are having access to that new money are not going to want to spend that on higher priced items. Okay. Now, the reason it would be higher priced is because not just because the money has come into the system. See, like they could have held the money. They're like, hey, we got this new money and we just hold on to it, not do anything with it. But then that's not out there doing transactions. It doesn't really take any kind of anything to or against the economy if it's just sitting there doing nothing, right? The moment that it's out there, now it's starting to do something, right? But what is really happening is that it's increasing the amount of transactions that are going on out there, which is increasing the consumption. When you have added consumption, then you have a supply-demand imbalance. Once the supply-demand imbalance is created, then you have price increases or decreases, depending on where the supply-demand is. But it's not just from the new money. It's from the new money coming in and the new money chasing those goods and services, and it comes depending on the flow, right? So, like, if you want to look at it, like, for an example, quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 failed to produce the inflation scenario that the Fed was looking for, but it did produce inflation, right? Where? The housing market, in the stock market, the bond market, all these places where the money was flowing into through loans, loan issuance, right? So it wasn't necessarily money being borrowed to buy the things that we were like consuming necessarily, because the inflation that we were experiencing back then wasn't really running rampant, or like what we have experienced recently, as people tell me they go down to the grocery store and everything's higher priced. They weren't telling that story after quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's because the new money wasn't coming in through those channels that would cause that kind of price increase. It was causing price increase through other channels where the money was flowing into houses, bonds, stuff like that. Right. So now, again, like I know this is complicated, guys, but it really starts to make a lot of sense when you really break it down, because now you have this idea that we have this new money that comes into the system that continues to make the transactions happen, right? But if that new money is coming in and the people who have first access to that money see that the higher prices are taking place, well, then they don't want to spend that money on higher prices, right? What they want to spend that money on is on more things, right? That's what they want to do. They don't want 1 ribeye for $20. They want 2 ribeyes for 10, right? That's what they would expect. So what ends up happening is that as this added consumption starts to take place and the prices start to increase because of the supply-demand imbalances, supply from foreign nations or outside manufacturing starts to find its way into the domestic market. And now this is going to happen no matter what. Like, unless the people who had first access to the money decide to do something other than enjoy it, then this is going to take place, like no matter what, right? So now here you got new money coming into the system that is driving out the domestic, or driving in foreign production, but now the domestic manufacturing can't compete, right? Because of the added price increases, cost of living going up, and the foreign competition that's now coming in, the domestic manufacturing can't compete with this, so they start to leave as ever increasing amounts of foreign production continue to pour in. So now which one is it really that's better? This gold standard that we could have, like, say gone through this debt or this redistribution, or we can have this debt cycle. So now where we go with this, more transactions start to take place. People are more happy with this debt cycle coming in. The new money's coming in. People are spending that money. It eventually finds its way down to the lower end of the people, right? Even though they're losing their jobs, they have service that they can provide for the people who have first access to the money. But what ends up happening is you're having this separation between the rich and the poor, right? And you can really see it, like, you can really actually see it pretty well in the people who are smart enough to figure it out that they can use debt to buy assets that then pay them. Right? And now, if you think about how that works, like, you really don't have anything, but now you've borrowed money because there's so much available out there to buy a particular asset that then has value to it. Then you can have somebody else go and work, provide a service for other people, get paid then pay you rent that's on top of the loan that you had used to buy the asset itself. And then now you have that asset paid for and you didn't even really have to work for it except for that taking out the debt and be able to do that, right? So now think about how that separates the renter from the owner, right? And now the renter, if they don't do the same thing, or even worse, do something bad with the debt by going out and buying, like, say, some fancy car that then takes all the rest of their money beyond the debt that they have or beyond the rent that they pay, now they're going to be in a position in which they may actually go backwards, right? In that they will not be able to even come close to, well, not even like that is backwards, but they won't be able to acquire the position in which that it would be to buy that house, right? Like you don't like just at all because you have no way of saving, right? Now, what ends up happening from there is that if the debt issuance continues to pour in, you will have ever increasing amounts of this behavior continue to take place that separates the rich from the poor even more. And this is one of the reasons why you're seeing such a dramatic change in the way that, trying to buy houses. It was one of the experiences that I saw or throughout the weekend here was how many people who said that they were getting into real estate through house hacking. And it was one of the smartest things that I've ever seen, considering the traditional way that most people have gotten into a house, considering the way that I got into a house, 10% down, worked real hard for the down payment, doing all the traditional stuff. And now here I am working real hard to make the payment. Okay? Where now house hacking is you get in there in a duplex or a piece of property in which that you can live on while somebody else is living in the main part of the house and paying you or paying the rent off or paying the mortgage off essentially through their rent, and now you have the asset that you really didn't have to pay for. Somebody else is paying for it and you now have acquired it, but you don't have to live there like I do. This is brilliant. This is one of the most smartest things I have ever seen anybody ever talk about. And this is one of the major discussions that was taking place through a lot of the people there at the conference yesterday. It's one of the reasons why you should really follow Lumberjack Landlord, Mike Zuber's One Rental at a Time, Dion. These guys really understand this thing very well, and they were describing it in a way that it was just like, man, this is a way that you can get around this whole problem of the separation between the rich and the poor and still be able to get into the asset. Because here's the thing, if you do not have access to that asset, you most likely will be very difficult to try and acquire any kind of real wealth in your life. Now, I have been to a bunch of economic seminars before, and ultimately every single person that has made it really what I would consider rich did it in real estate, like every one of them. Like, and I don't know why anybody would want to try and reinvent the wheel, right? These guys know what the hell they're doing. Now, me personally, I have done quite well sitting here on YouTube, being an entertainer, an informer, and doing the things that I have. But ultimately, if I was to ever kind of want to have any kind of real wealth in my life, it's going to have to be one of the property owners. And that goes all the way back to the Cantillon effect. Again, as the property owners, there's only three people who live independently of the state. All right? The prince, the property owners, and the capitalist who invest into that system. So I'm going to be those two, right? The property owner and the capitalist who invest into that system. Now, if the tough love, like, let's think about it. We know what happens here if you have the debt issuance. Okay? I mean, I could go into it deeper, but we have, 18 minutes into it now, and I think you got the gist of it. So you had two choices, right? We could either do the debt issuance or we could have the debt or the business cycle. And now if we have that business cycle, you will always have a limitation on how many transactions can take place. Right? And there is no fixing this. Like if you have a limited currency, yes, you will have a currency that's probably going to be very stable. The inflations will be very low. That kind of thing is going to be very beneficial for a lot of people. But you can also understand how it is that this money gets circulated, hoarded, and then redistributed right back out again. And this happens in a cycle that's gone back literally probably thousands of years, right? Like there's no way that the human nature combined with the fixed currency and the way that people will move their life into a better, higher standard of living will ever change, right? So if there was a condition in which that people understood that said, I have a bare minimum of life condition that I will live that is the same as everybody else is willing to do, which is very low, and then take that hard work and production that I am doing and reinvest that instead of using it for my elevation of my life, things might be a little different. But it doesn't work that way. Like it doesn't. Like that dude's gonna want two ribeyes when he has enough money for it. Like that's just the way it goes, you know? And so if I mean I'm not trying to put like the what if, right? But that's what would take. And that's not gonna happen. So now we can think about it from this debt cycle things, right? So now if we didn't take the tough love then and go through the debts or the business cycle, now we have to go through this debt cycle. And so what we experience from this is the ever increasing amounts of people who will take out malinvestments, like bad irrational exuberance that takes place. And with this irrational exuberance, you have things that should never have existed. Like, you know, I don't know, like, okay, for example, we had these, I worked at a really nice lumber yard. All right. There was two of them. These buildings, the facilities were just absolutely incredible. Now, before those facilities were built, the the older stores, these hardware stores, were fairly small, and they really needed to be updated, and they did need to be bigger, right, to handle the new expansion that was taking place around the area. But the amount of irrational exuberance that had gone into the buildings themselves was just phenomenal. Like the most luxurious hardware stores that you could ever possibly imagine. In fact, I was showing Old Nighter, if he's watching, why don't you post a link to that if you can find it? There's a YouTube video that I had done years and years ago called Tour of a Dying Business. And and in that video you can see like how awesome this store really was. And that was the problem, right? Is that during the good times, this store was built, I believe it was completed in '05, right? So you can imagine what was taking place in the economy at the time when you're a hardware store, lumber yard, when you have all this massive amounts of attention going into real estate, right? And this bubble being formed there. He was part of that. Like, I mean, he saw this money coming in and he was like, man, I want nice stores. In fact, I want the nicest stores. In fact, I will spare no cost at building the finest stores that could ever be impressed upon somebody. And that's exactly what he did. And then he lost them, right? Because it was just not going to be able to be supported once the cycle started to slow down because the debt issuance was slowing down. So now what, right? Those stores completely shut down, no longer even in existence anymore. And this is what ends up happening throughout most of the, well, not most of the economy, throughout massive amounts of the economy. See, people don't pay attention to what it is that's going to be taking place once the cycle starts to move the other way. Everybody just kind of gets this feeling, man, this is just the way it is, and this is the way it's going to go. Like, you have to think, when it's at its best, I would be concerned. And when it's at its worst, that's when you should be excited that it's going to get better. Yeah. You know, people will want to get like all lit up about how bad it is. And I'm thinking, well, if you ain't dead yet, right, and you ain't failed yet, or it isn't like, you know, whatever, and you're maintaining at this point, even though it sucks and it's painful and it's like, you know, slow or whatever, but you're still making it. I mean, think about it, man. You're about ready to get into a time in which the cycle changes and it's going to start getting better. However, most people face like bankruptcies and failure and there's all that other stuff. Right? So again, what is it? What is the better one? You need tough love, right? You can't take out those debts and enjoy it. You can't enjoy that kind of money like that. Going and buying fancy houses and cars and all the other things that go with it, but it's handed to you and you liked it. And the people who are selling it to you, they like getting that money and spending that money in the economy. And the people who got it in the economy really enjoyed it as well. So everybody's saying, hey, this is way better, right? And when it's not good, it's the politicians' fault, right? Not theirs, because they went into the rational, you know, the irrational exuberance and bought hardware stores that were far too big that should have been, right? You see kind of what's happened here? That's why I look at it and I think, you know, it isn't a good or bad thing. It isn't, you know, it isn't no politician's fault, because I can describe this stuff, you know, from hundreds of years ago and like, you know, describe the, you know, the cycles perfectly. It's not anybody's, like, there's no person who's going to come up and like be like that magic dude who, or whatever, who's going to be like, man, I got the perfect idea here. It's not going to work like that. what we're going to have is the continual expansion of debt here within the United States until it can't happen anymore. And nobody knows exactly how far that is. In fact, I don't even think even the World Economic Forum and the Council of Foreign Relations, I left 2 articles down in the description to those. They talk about this whole scenario, and I don't even think they know, right? Like how much dollar denominated debt exists out there and how much how big of a problem it's going to be once that debt actually comes due. This is such a phenomenal thing to think about. Like it's one of the oddest things that has like probably encountered my understanding of what's going on inside of economics than anything I've ever seen, because most people don't ever take this into consideration whatsoever. And it's even kind of hard to like see it within like people's understandings within the articles you read, or even from the Fed speeches or anything else like that. I mean, you do find it in the Fed speeches because we just recently covered one that did cover this particular topic of like how much for like dollar denominated debt exists outside of the United States. And I mean, I was reading this article from the World Economic Forum, and it's something like $65 trillion or something of the shadow banking system contracts that are due in dollars. And I think, damn, that is so much money. That is so much. Like, how do you cover like? And a lot of people have like their 60. Like, I don't understand. Like, who's responsible for all that debt? And it's just like, yeah, that's kind of a funny one because it's every single person who has ever borrowed money in dollars. That's who's responsible for it, right? And so you can imagine foreign nations who have written contracts, their forms of treasuries, right? Their own bonds that are due in dollars. Like I was just reading it again, the Brazilian one that had taken place, I think, just towards the beginning of the year or just at the end of last year. All the corporations, all the individuals, like how many people would think they would know like how would anybody know, like within the people who do statistical analysis would understand if you and I did a contract that was due in a dollar, right? And you gave me the money, I gave you the contract, you have it, we don't report it to anybody, you got it, right? And say that it was such a contract that was valid enough that everybody believed that and confident that I would pay it back, and you used it as money. And you say, well, yeah, I don't really need it anymore. I'll buy that, whatever thing you got over there with it, and I'll use this contract if that's cool. And it was like, yeah, it pays an interest, sure, I'll take that, right? Now, who knows about that contract? Nobody, right? Just us. It's the people who are dealing with it. That's the like the shadow currency system that exists out there that is far bigger than anybody is ever realizing. Like it's massive, right? So anyhow, that was my thoughts on it. We went 27 minutes. I figured that's pretty good. Got 105 people watching with 369 people watching with 105 likes. There we go. Well, with that many people watching, we should be at least 250 likes, right? I mean, come on, guys, go hit that like button. We're 27 minutes into this, and a lot of comments. Okay, let me cruise down to the bottom real quick, see how far away we are. Jeez, there's a lot down there. Okay, I'm going to cruise back up to the top. All right, here we go. You know what's funny? I just wanted to add one thing to this. The people who have figured this out, like to take the debt, buy an asset, and then have somebody else pay that asset off, it is like those people are not like super geniuses, right? I mean, I'm not trying to put them down. They're pretty smart guys. I mean, they are very much, but it's not beyond like just simply just doing it, right? Now, what I found like through most of it is that it's fear. It's fear. It's like my own hold up, right? It's literally a fear factor that stops people from doing this exact process of taking out a debt. It's a good debt because you are buying an asset that somebody else is going to pay off. And when I find like somebody who's done it really, really well, they're like almost looked down upon as some sort of evil person, right? And you would not believe like how like that is not the way most of these guys that I've seen are, right? They care very much not only about the asset itself, but that the people and the tenants themselves are taken care of, right? That, that what they are providing for them is an experience of something that is nice. and not some crappy, dwelling that they're, just trying to sucker money out of, right? It's not like that at all. Most of these people care so much about their, not only the asset but the tenant, because the tenant is the one who's, in the asset itself that's paying them. It's like this very big symbiotic relationship, but yet it looks like it because of the money that has to come out of your pocket or whatever. It ends up being like this negative thing that you're looking upon, and it's such a horrible relationship when it goes like that. Like it shouldn't be looked at it in such fashions. I mean, I know myself, like when I rented a home, I never looked down upon my landlord was the coolest dude ever. I mean, he gave me good rent too. So I mean, it was just like that was even better. But I know a lot of people who, I guess it would be kind of frustrating if you like run out of money and it's always like, this really expensive rent thing that you're paying, but it's your obligation, right? And so, being just like in that position in which that it's not necessarily being smarter, but just facing the fear of going into it, that's really the difference between, being able to do something like this and not. And what I found funny is that as I was talking to Matthew about this, the lumberjack landlord, um, he said something that I thought was really, really, I took a lot away from this particular statement. He said, the feelings, the fear, the anxiety, and everything that he had when he bought the first property, he said it was just like intense, like really bad. And I know, I mean, I just like trying to buy this house was like just killed me. I mean, you guys watched it happen when I was doing this. But but he said like that feeling, that intense, like overwhelming anxiety and stuff like that. And you got to think like Matthew, I forget how many he has, like over 100 doors, right? 100 doors. He said that that same feeling existed when he bought the 40th property too. He says it doesn't go away. It's just like the fear factor is always going to be there. You have to face it and it's going to happen. And that's what usually holds most people up. Like I said, like for me, I know that it was. I mean, I had a foreclosure in my past. I didn't want to experience another one. I thought for sure there was going to be a housing market crash when the interest rates went up, just like everybody else did. I was like feeding it into myself, like, like you're going to fail kind of thing. And when I eventually bought the house, it scared the shit out of me. And here it is 2 years later, and I never regretted the decision. Like after that, like I am so happy that I bought this house when I did. And I mean, I don't regret it one little bit. It was like one of the best decisions that I think I ever made, that I was the scaredest I had ever been at the time. And so I understand what he was saying by that. Like it's the fear factor that holds people up, and that's what I think most people need to face, right? And so, you know, tough love is like, facing the fears. It's like I can't, enjoy the luxuries. I can't do all those other things, right? I got to work damn hard, save every little bit I can to try and house hack into this, and basically live as a slave to the idea of what it is that is going to be accomplished by having this asset. Because I don't want to be like the person who is renting. You want to be the person who is the property owner who's getting paid, right? I personally want to be the capitalist, So anyway, are you guys enjoying this? We got 393 people watching with 152 likes. We should definitely be at 200 likes by now. Come on. All right, finally catching a live stream. Oh, we already read that one. It was a great speech. Read that one. Okay. Most of us don't. It's federal holiday, though. Yeah, cool. All-nighter hider. Hi there. So Simon Collins, 12. All right. Wow, that's a cool select. Okay, we read all these. All right. It's a blessing being a blessing. Yeah, dude, it was a great time, man. It was like it literally was. It was like hanging out with friends, and I haven't done that in a really long time. And we were just like chilling and bullshitting and sharing ideas, and gotta hang out with the bros. Yep. Is that hat embroidered? Where can I buy it? Now, this particular one is embroidered, and I do sell them through Teespring. But I have to be truthful with you guys. It's not this hat that goes through Teespring. There is some hats that say Uneducated Economist. This one was given to me by a fan a long time ago. It was mailed to me. And I'm not sure where it had come from. But, Teespring is kind of linked up with YouTube. They make it real easy to integrate the two. So I just kind of went with Teespring for the hat. So you can get some through the link down in the description. There's a Teespring link. Have all kinds of merchandise in there. You can buy hoodies and t-shirts and stickers and coffee cups, and I don't even know what's all there. My my friend and assistant Chandler had set up quite a bit of the merchandise on that. Okay. Do you ever think you'll be giving speeches? Crazy how life changes. I'm giving speeches. Like this is it. I mean, I can't believe it. Like I did one in November. I just did one. I took a phone call for a possible another speech or a conference coming up in May. So that would be, you know, if it happens that way, three in like almost 6, 8 months, so that's like, I mean, yeah, I'm giving speeches. Like I'm gonna keep going. Hopefully I get more. Um, I mean, I I couldn't like I don't even know why, but a long time ago, I was just like, man, it would be cool to be up in front of a crowd speaking. And I didn't even really know what or why I would do that. And then I did it. Like I can't like why did I do that? It's just like it was something that like was in me from a long time ago. I think it was probably because I liked doing the bingo thing, and I liked kind of being up in front of a crowd, and I don't know if like a play was like necessarily. I did do a play too, so that was I guess I just like being a performer. All right. Do you get your traffic issues sorted out? Oh, Penny, God, you're so funny, man. All right. Hell yeah, Simon is awesome. Gotta see him live. Yeah. And I do. Like, I really appreciate it. Like, Matthew really, like, the night that we, what was it? I guess it was Friday night. Was that what it was? Or was it Sunday night? Or Saturday night? We talked for quite a few hours. And I mean, to be honest with these guys, they really understand entrepreneurship, right? I was a guy that didn't really think I was going to have much going on in life. And when I finally quit drinking and when I turned 40 years old and I was finally giving up drinking and stuff, and I was just like, man, I got to start doing something that's more than just like showing up for work. And when you're not in that mindset your entire life, it's hard to like to trigger it, to like say, to see the things out there and to think differently than what you had always thought. And then when you're like traumatized with the foreclosure and all kinds of stuff, and you're like, come on, get over it, man. Just like, get over that fear already. But it's hard to do that. And talking with Matthew and Dion and Mike and in the old night, it was like, it hit me like, dude, I'm not thinking correctly. Like I think about the videos, I think about the economy, and I think about how those things operate, and I theorize on some of these things and kind of go about. But as far as being the entrepreneur itself, sometimes I find it difficult. Like I limit myself with my own mental blocks, right? And hanging out with those guys, man, it really triggered something in me. I was just like, man, I really do need to take on that entrepreneurship, especially after Matthew said, dude, you already done the hard work. Right now, you just need to go do it. You just need to go on and do the stuff, right? And man, I really want to thank you, Matthew, for doing that, man. That was really cool because I know it was just you just having a conversation with me, but it meant more to me than you might know. All right. Hit the like. Can't spell friend without fed. Jeez. Did you get the dishes done? Oh, gee whiz. All right. Benny, chill the dice. All right. I'm not reading Benny's stuff. Okay. Bob. Let me get these. Someone mentioning natural gas over the past few days. It is awfully cheap. I could expect a reality where it may be hoarded. Commodities have been manipulated in the past manner. I was thinking about that whole natural gas thing. I haven't looked into it, but I was just thinking, okay, what do I know about economics? If somebody was to tell me, hey, man, there is a really low price going on natural gas right now. So without being really like dedicated to looking at the supply chains and understanding of that, I just think of the natural reaction to investment when you have a low natural gas price. Like how much investment into new production, new facilities, the actual extraction takes place, right? That drops dramatically. People don't want to invest into that. Now, there might be scenarios in which that people will be like, no, you're completely wrong. This is going to, whatever. I'm just thinking about the investment into it. Like think about the irrational, exuberant investment. Put it that way. People are like, oh, prices, what? I want in or I want out or whatever, right? They get jumpy at it. And this is like a good example of it. I think a good example of something like this is when the lumber prices shot up to $1,700 per thousand. A bunch of people not only emailed me, but then came to me and said, hey, my cousin said he can, I can have his mill or whatever, and then I'm going to start milling up lumber. How much do you think? Well, how do I distribute? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it doesn't quite work like that, bro. Like you can mill up like logs and make trim and maybe even make stuff that you could do for like say outdoor projects and furnitures and decks, possibly stuff like that. But you're not going to be able to mill up lumber that you can construct a house with without it being graded. So now you have to have a, particular style of, tree to cut. But then you also have to have that lumber graded, which is now adding cost to it. Is it possible? Sure, yeah, you can do it, but going and getting a mill right now, trying to figure out where it is that you're going to get the trees to cut to make this and then have it graded and take advantage of the high prices, you're probably going to miss it. And then a bunch of people had done this. Like I thought about it, I'm like, man, how much did you pay for the mill? Like I mean, hopefully once this is all like equalize, once we find equilibrium on the lumber prices, I hope you can make use of that thing, or be able to sell it because it sounds like you paid kind of a high price for it since everybody was buying these things, right? So this all came from just the perception of price. Like there's no reality in the economy with any of this stuff. Like, I mean, somebody might have been able to take advantage of the mill, the milling of lumber and stuff like that. But the idea that most people had, it's too late by the time you're there, right? If you're already well established and you're in it, right? And all of a sudden it's happening, you're in it. You're like the one doing it. But the amount of people who see that and want to take advantage of that, like say, I want to do that exact thing, they start taking out debts and pouring money into it. And then by the time they get there in operation, they realize that it isn't the way that the prices were. And then, right, everything crashes. So essentially that's like the bullwhip effect, okay? And this is going to happen throughout all industries, in different styles and forms. All right. Like has been touched and ears open right on. 366 people watching, 189. All right, we're 11 people away from that 200 mark. Brent Johnson called natural gas the widowmaker. Got to play it right. Yeah, right? Yep. Oil is on track for $100 a barrel, which is still $50 a barrel under its all-time high. So, yeah, it's expensive. That's what's really funny about like the oil commodity, compared to like the gas prices out there. Because I remember when like oil hit $150 a barrel back, what was it, 2006 or something? Is that when it was? I can't remember when it was, but it was back there a little ways when it had jumped up there. And like a gallon of gas was like $5. And then like here we are, we've never really quite achieved, that $150 a barrel, like in the same sense. And yet we got gas is really expensive. Well, it had been. It's starting to come down now. At least I saw it in my area. I haven't checked it in the last few days, but it was like it didn't keep in lockstep with it. So for me, it's like really difficult to look at like oil and the price of oil per barrel and then relate it to the gas because I try to do that same thing with lumber and it's not the same. Like lumber, I can pretty well predict like where the retail prices are going to go by the future prices and where they sell because really ultimately like the people who are buying those future contracts are other wholesalers, distributors, and it eventually comes back down to me who's like the retailer. So to me I can really correlate those prices. Now they don't, like I can see the time delay that takes place from the time that the futures prices are closed to the time that they actually impact the retail prices because that ends up happening months down the road. And usually that is more of an indication, or like you can find where that price time difference is going to take place by the amount of volume that you're moving, right? So if there's a lot of like business taking place, there's a lot of home activity or whatever, the futures contract and the price that is correlated to the retail price starts to shrink up quite a bit. The less activity, then the longer it takes, right? Because that lumber is sitting, even though it's sold, the future's sold, but the current lumber that's sitting on the ground, that hasn't moved out yet, and that's still stuck at the older prices. So that's a lot of like, so that's why it's difficult to like understand where the oil prices to the gas prices are, unless you're like right in the middle of it and understand how the distribution networks go, how long it takes for those lag times to affect. And again, for like me in lumber, it's really easy. I can see it. Like it's like, well, like right now, it's really easy because the lumber isn't moving, so you could just, it just doesn't move. All right. Wouldn't the gold become even more coveted in the situation, just further delaying the amplitude of what was avoided into the future? Would the gold become even more coveted in this situation, just further delaying the amplitude of what was avoided. Um, I'm not sure if I understand the question. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just a little dense on this right now. Dollar will be incredibly overvalued when that happens. Yeah, absolutely. When that, like, this is the thing. I mean, I think about it. $65 trillion in debt, of debt out there. That is like everybody, everywhere, all the time, right? Like, that's funny. I brought that up. I just bought that movie. I don't know how I said that. Anyhow, um, but this is like, like one of the biggest issues that I think exist outside of the United States that most people who don't follow the economy or understand how the dollar works or how the dollar works as a world reserve currency, this is probably one of the biggest misconceptions of dollar being trash. Like the dollar is going to fail. Nobody wants the dollar. The dollar's on its way out. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, with $65 trillion worth of contracts, do you realize the devastating effects that would take place if all of a sudden those contracts were to come due? Like there is not nearly enough money out there in circulation to cover all those things, right? And so now we think about this for just a minute, right? Just think about like how the dollar itself is used for transactions. U.S. treasuries that are due in dollars gets used for transactions. The shadow banking system that creates all these contracts, all the shadow currencies. This is like massive. Like the dollar is so far above anything else out there as far as even remotely coming close to being able to provide the transactions on a confident, right? That's really what it comes down to, on a confident basis. Right? See, like people could be confident in gold and Bitcoin just fine. Like it'll just fine. And I mean, I know, I mean, I'd like, I take as much Bitcoin and gold as I can get, and I'll hold on to it as much as I can. Right? But as far as being able to be the provider of those transactions, it ain't going to happen. We want to do far more transactions than any fixed currency would ever allow us to do. And if we happen to be a very industrious person, we're going to hoard on to it. And this is going to be the beginning of the problems, right? Because that starts limiting the amount of transactions that are available for other people. And then so goes the cycle. And that's why it's really important to understand where it is you are in this process. Like, it's like, we can blame it. We can put blame anywhere we want, right? We can say, no, this is like, their fault, tariffs, taxes, blah, all this other stuff, And it was just like, okay, but then we can look at the real economic force that has taken place, because that's really what the truth is, right? And everything else is just an effect of that. All right. Let me go down there and check out that super chat. Go answer that. Wow, look at all these comments. Oh my gosh, you guys are just going nuts. There's no way I can go through all those. Okay. Don't talk financial freedom. Oh, Dion. I'm sorry, Dion. Shit, bro. I'm sorry. It's Dion. Dion talk financial freedom. I can't see, guys. I am so sorry. Like, I really do need to go and get my eyes checked because it's getting worse by like. Yeah, I hope it ain't something worse. Like, what do they call that? Degenerative eye disease or something? Hope it ain't something like that. Okay, let me see if I'm so sorry, Dion. Dion, you're cool as shit, bro. I'm sorry. So great at meeting you this weekend. Awesome to see you are the same in person. Yeah, man. Thanks. That's the only thing I really have going for me. Is to be authentic for you guys, because like there was no way I could hide any, like, what was I gonna try and prove to you, man? I mean, I haven't done anything really, except for just like these studies and stuff, and then bust my ass to try and get to where I am now, which really kind of happened, in my opinion, in pretty record time. So as I'm going on this journey and stuff, I didn't want to fake anything, like not who I was, what I'm doing, like the cars that I drive, the clothes that I wear, the things that I do. This is me, man. This is like exactly. And, like Dion, like you know, like he was telling me about the binder strategy, how you get your renters to ask for to pay higher rent. It's a beautiful, beautiful idea. I mean, this is like if you were a landlord and you struggle with like rent increases and stuff like that, you really should go check out Dion's channel and have him explain the binder theory, because it is absolutely the best way that I believe that a landlord can engage with their tenant in a way that is a clear communication of what it is that needs to take place. And I mean, the way he described it, it is like almost a guarantee Like I can't say a guarantee because I wouldn't know because I didn't actually see it in play. But the way I kind of theorized the idea of it is that it's almost a guarantee that your tenant is going to be super approving of the idea that their rent is going to go up. And that is such an odd thing to try and understand, right? Like it's like most people would be like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You follow Dion's strategy. It's really simple. It doesn't take long, and it's brilliant. Like I thought it was like one of the coolest things I had heard at the event. As far as like if you are in that position of being a landlord already or having properties, how to go about that particular process of it. I thought that was pure gold. So thank you for that, and thank you for the 499, man. That's really cool of you. Um, true story, easy to you. You guys are talking there. Okay, the dice are taken back down after the video and travel with the vehicle. Oh, you guys are talking about the dice. Dollar will be king until there's something better. All right, I'm gonna cruise down here, guys. So I'm sorry if I skipped over a bunch of questions or anything that was up there. Sometimes these live streams get hit so hard with the comments and questions that I never get down to the very bottom here. So I'm gonna cruise back down to the bottom and say read the last, say, 8 comments here or something. Liberty, a vote for either wing is a vote for the same bird. Oh shit, put these things on. Okay, oops. The broken ones don't make it any better. Okay, Toaster, that is good advice, 100%. Unfortunately, I don't live in the USA, and I admit that barely known anything about my rights in the Netherlands. Time to change that. Yeah, absolutely. The rights that you have are not well explained. You really have to study that stuff for yourself. And then once you have retained and understand what your rights are, like, your constitutional rights, if you can study and understand the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, you will really start to, it really changes something about the way that you actually think and operate within society and stuff. Um, it's like a whole different mentality that you end up taking on. It's funny because most people I asked don't know anything about the rights, right? They can, like, I asked them, hey, do you know what the Bill of Rights are? And they're like, oh, not really. Like your constitutional rights, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, And that's usually like the extent of it. Like they can get that far, which is good. I mean, if you know that you have a freedom of speech and the right to bear arms, like the freedom of speech, is the one that's really there to protect you. And if that fails and you got your right to bear arms, that will come back for the final defense, right? But then you got like other constitutional rights, and most people have no idea, right? Now, the third constitutional right is this kind of like, to not have to quarter troops unless during a time of war. It seems really kind of like outdated. Like that doesn't really seem to like even make a whole lot of sense to why it's even there, but it did at the time, right? And so if you think back to like, there was no way that, their military could totally facilitate like the handling of feeding and housing and dealing with all these troops. So it would make sense that they would have that in there for defensive purposes, that, that would be there. But it's even that in itself just seems like really unconstitutional or and non, like this is my private property, you have no right to it kind of thing, right? It's my country. But anyway, for the defensive purposes of it, they did put that in there. Now, the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution really is the only one that I feel that you should really learn verbatim, like know it word for word, because it's really the only one that you need to protect you at the time that your rights are being infringed, right? And so that's ultimately when somebody wants to come and search you or stop and question you, because a questioning of you is the same as a searching of you, right? You don't have to answer anything to anyone ever at any time. You can keep your mouth shut. Silence is golden, right? And most people don't realize that. They want to explain their way out of things. And, really just anytime you have ever asked anything, you really just don't have to say anything, but I'm going to keep quiet. And if it continues on, you say, the rights of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects from unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons and things to be seized. And as All-Nighter Hider says, show me the warrant. And not just a warrant, a signed warrant, because you can go and get the warrant, doesn't mean that the judge signed it, right? Very important. So it has to be a signed warrant. But those words right there, that stops it. Right? You can't be searched without a warrant. You don't have to answer any questions. And so learning your constitutional rights is by far one of the most important things you could ever do, you know? And then you start going into like, you know, the due process and the rights of the accused in the criminal case and the rights of the accused in the civil case, the cruel and unusual punishments, the rights that are not specifically enumerated inside of the Constitution. And you also have rights that are not given to the federal government, but are reserved to the states and the local governments and the local, you know, people themselves. So the Constitution is a very important document that most people have they have even less understanding of the Constitution than they do over economics, right? And that's where my man all-nighter really steps up. He understands that stuff really well, and that's pretty cool about it, because like once you understand economics and you understand that, you have like a like you know, you have like a view of like that whole matrix thing going on, right? Everybody else is walking through a whole different life than you are. All right, government is reinventing the wheel when it comes to real estate. Look out for renters' bill of rights. Tommy, YouTube law degree can work a testimony to that. Teach some courses on understanding bonds. I'd sign up. Shit's confusing. Yeah, DC, thank you so much. That's actually the encouragement that that Matthew and the crew was giving me the other day. You know, that's really what I think my next step is going to be, is going to have to be some courses. And I was really like, I mean, it's been on my mind pretty much since that conversation. Like, I went to bed thinking about it. I woke up thinking about it. I thought about it all day at Sunday, you know, at the all day Sunday at the conference. And then even on the flight home, like I was like kind of just going through this idea of like, man, what would each one of these courses be like? How long would they be? Like, what would they cover? Stuff like that. And so I'm sure that's like the next step. Like that's the only thing to it. And with their encouragement, I mean, there's like, dude, this is like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna sit there and work at the hardware store all day, or what? Just do these YouTube videos? If you want to go out there and really do something, you have to be like, you know, adventurous and entrepreneurship. You know, get into the entrepreneurship of things and start building some courses and, you know, go do it. You know. And I'm thinking, yeah, why? What am I doing? Just sitting here like, you know, screwing around, like playing with the chickens or something. I don't know. All right. And I like the chickens. The chickens are fun. All right. I love when rent goes up 20% for no reason. Forces me to grind harder. Right? Right? Okay. Well, I'm not going to go and defend like the whole idea of a rent increase. You have to go and see it for yourself. But I mean, after listening to Dion explain that, it made a lot of sense to me. And, you know, as far as like the tenant part of things, you do have to be understanding, right? It's not your property, right? It's somebody else's property and it's their business, right? And if you don't like that, that house doesn't really have to exist for you. That's what sucks about it, is that there's not enough houses to go around. I know, right? It's tough. I mean, I experienced that a couple of years ago when I just wanted to rent a house and I was willing to put $10,000 down for a deposit and no one couldn't find anybody. Good, you know, that was what happens when you're in forbearance and rent moratoriums and stuff like that, is you have a guy who gets put in a position in which that he like literally couldn't. I could find a rental property. You know what the real problem was? I would have had to got rid of my dog. That's what it ended up coming down to, you know, that I almost did it. And it was just like, you know how many people lit up on my YouTube channel? It's like, don't get rid of the dog. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is my damn life. What is this dog? Dog's passed away now. I love that dog. I absolutely love that dog. Right? But the dog's not with me anymore. Right? And this is like one of the weirdest things that had ever happened in my life, that I'm like, am I really considering like I can't go and do something I want to do because of this dog? Like, I love this dog, but this thing is limiting me on my life decisions here, or making, you know, what the hell is this, right? Luckily, that kind of happened because I got the house, and that was cool because, you know, I was happy with the final decision of it. But really, that dog played into a role in that. And I was just like, that's not going to happen again, you know? And I mean, to be honest, I want to get another dog now for the boy, but I'm going to wait till summertime. But like, I thought about it again. It was just like, man, I'm never going to let something like that interfere with a life decision of such fashion, you know? All right. Okay. Trust or intaxable. Who wants a course from Simon? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah, right on. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I really want to pursue something like that. I mean, it's just like I said, it's been spinning in my head since then. And renters in Alaska are starting to see foreclosures because the landlords aren't paying the mortgage. Yeah. And so then what happens to them, right? They gets onto a new landlord who's gonna, raise your rent because the last landlord didn't raise it enough, and that's why he's going foreclosure, right? Like he's losing the property because he can't afford it. Why not? Because the rent doesn't pay. So guess what? Somebody else is going to buy it and they're going to make you pay, or you're going to have to find some other place to live and somebody else will move in and pay. And that's like just the unfortunate situation that we're in. It's not anybody's fault. There's nothing you can do about this, right? If you want to understand whose fault it is, go and blame the economic theories that are existing out there and go read the Cantillon essay and it'll explain it to you. You don't have to blame the landlords anymore. You'll understand why. Right? They're in competition just like everybody else, right? I mean, there's a supply and demand issue there as well. And, it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way it is. And that's the easier way to understand. This is why, the condition exists the way it's going to. And it's not going to get any better so long as the new money comes into the system. So, if you really like, the only way it can really change, in my opinion, is to build more dwellings to be at, right? And all the crash people out there who are talking about now, there's going to be overwhelming. It's not happening, right? It's not existing. It doesn't appear to be existing. And we can theorize on why something is going to happen into the future unless it is absolutely like stated, like guaranteed treasury bond buyback program. There's nothing out there that you can really guarantee anything on, especially when it comes to like banking and government and anything like that. Is just like none of that stuff is like something that you can have a fortune telling crystal ball to go with. There's a lot of economic theories that you can use. There's a lot of like models that are out there that'll like kind of predict what it is that comes from certain events. But ultimately, if you just know the economic forces that are at play, you just know that the condition, like, I mean, all these people who are like, man, we're going to bring manufacturing back to America in a meaningful way. It's just like, how? How are you going to do that? Like, where is it that all this manufactured goods from the United States is going to find its way around the rest of the world? It's not going to, right? Not without government subsidies. And then how are you going to compete with all the foreign competition out there when their labor cost is down and their quality isn't that far off? I mean, it might even be shitty, but who cares? It's way cheaper. You can buy two of them for the price of one over here, something like that. It's still the foreign competition comes in. And it's going to compete, so it's going to be very difficult because we are in our condition. We are in that moment in the cycle that it doesn't. It's like you can pretend, you can try, you can do all kinds of stuff and theorize, but if you don't understand the cycle, it's just like you'll never figure out why it doesn't work. And it isn't working. And it's only continuing down a particular path. It's only getting, in a lot of people's eyes, worse, right? But it's not worse, it's just the way it is. Uh, right to bare legs. The fourth is the most abused ATM at the moment. The fourth is the most abused? Like abusing on our rights, or we're abusing the Fourth Amendment on the authority? Because there's no such thing. There's no such thing as like the Fourth Amendment being abused upon authority. There's no such thing. That doesn't exist, right? I mean, I can see the other way around where like they're trying to push on ours and abusing our Fourth Amendment rights, but there's no way that we can use our Fourth Amendment rights for abuse. It doesn't work like that. Now, there's can be like annoyance and, provocation, like say screwing with the cops or something like that, but those are humans screwing with humans, right? That's not abusing your Fourth Amendment rights. That's like literally like just being dicks. Nah. Oh, I gotta remember to not cuss. I had a teacher tell me like this weekend that she shows some of my videos to her class, and I thought, oh man, I gotta really remember that, and remember that I have like little kids watching sometimes. Um, right to turkey legs. Fact, you have no rights at the moment. No, I don't agree with that. In fact, Old Nighter tells some great stories that will contradict that very statement. So, when you own real estate through an LLC, through the trust, there's no downside. Trust invest your reserves in gold, and if things go south, flee town and change identities. Well, I tell you what, the guy who screwed well, he didn't screw the project up. He just got caught in the middle of high lumber prices and it, like, went bankrupt on the project. But he bailed. He left. Yeah, I can imagine. I wouldn't want to be around here either if I'd done that. All right. Truth be told, everyone is a renter. You never get away with paying someone to stay in your house like property taxes. If you try to exercise one, you will be deemed difficult and more likely be arrested. You can't, that doesn't make sense. You can't be arrested for exhibiting a constitution, like any law that violates your constitutional right is void. You can't, that doesn't work like that. You can't get arrested declaring your rights, like saying I'm declaring my constitutional rights. You don't get arrested for that. That's not how it works, right? It's like, it doesn't work like that. In fact, there's no reason to even have to speak to a police officer unless they can articulate to you if you are committed, or about to commit a crime, right? I mean, if they can't do that, if they can't articulate that to you, they're like, hey, I want to know where you're going. Why are you here? What are you doing with that sign? You don't have to answer any of that. You don't have to answer any of that stuff. You're gonna be like, whatever. And you don't have to talk to the police ever. In fact, when they pull you over, you don't have to say anything. You can just hand them your stuff. You say, I'm sorry, I don't answer questions. That's that. You hand them your stuff, and you just sit there and you stare out the windshield. That's it. Like, you can be that kind of person to them. I'm not. I'm really nice to the cops because I like cops. I think they're cool. But I mean, because I wanted to be a police officer at one time in my life. Like, I really did. Like, I really wanted to be a police officer. I thought that would be a very, fulfilling thing to do in my life. Like, my full family was military, right? So I was just like, okay, well, maybe I'll do law enforcement or something. I was thinking county sheriff. It was just like, I thought that, man, I'm built for this. Like, this is what I want to do. And I realized, man, I don't necessarily really want to deal with the pits of society. Like, I think, the service of it is a wonderful thing. Like, I would love to do that, to be able to help people in that sort of fashion. That's like, I can't think of anything that would be cooler than that, right? But I don't want to deal with the pits of society. Like, that's not, like, I want to chase excellence and do investment kind of things, and be able to share my findings and theories and stuff with people, and hope, and benefit their lives that way. So I just never pursued it, but I mean, I had dreams of it at one time. And that's why I thought it was cool that Dion was in law enforcement. I realized that over the weekend. I didn't know that before. And so I thought, man, that made him even cooler in my book, That's, simple toast use condition. Okay, never talk to the police, never. That's right. You don't have to say silence is golden, Ooh, that sounds good. Do you have a recommendation of one of your favorite YouTube law channels by any chance? That would be awesome. Yeah, I'd refer back to All Nighter on that because I haven't really been following those guys for a long time. Americans need to get away from trying to keep up with appearance and the Joneses and get rural, build out of pocket, and live frugally. Yeah, like, that's I think that's probably like one of the better understandings of how it is that you really need to build a stable future is to just live like a normal person, just like, I mean, it's cool to enjoy your money. Like, I mean, I want to drive a Camaro. Like, I want the Camaro. I want it bad, right? I dream of it at times sometimes, right? But I understand that there's more important things out there than the damn Camaro. Like, I need, I need to really kind of have better things stabilized for, not only myself, but for my family and their future and stuff. I accept liability so long as liability can be proven. Simon, you are reciting that while making eye contact is terrifying. Well, oh, the constitutional rights. If you don't know that, if you can't cement it into your tongue and know it like that, then it's not going to work. It's not, there's no point to it, right? I mean, you can say it's my Fourth Amendment right, but if you can articulate it like that, it's over, right? It's, all right. Hi, UE. Love the channel. I've asked this before, but just wanted to clarify, is PCI an approximate to overall consumption of the country? Personal consumption index? Here's the problem. A lot of people ask me like to compare these numbers and stuff. And if you notice on my channel, I don't do a whole lot of that. Like I don't use a whole lot of actual numbers. I mean, I might inside of like a document I read or something like that. But I don't necessarily trust any of the numbers that are presented at all. The only thing I kind of trust is the amount and the direction they move, right? Because it was stated a while ago, and I did a video on this. It's called FASB 56, FASB 56, right? If I got it right, or FASAB. Anyway, there's a legal lies. FASB 56, legal lies. I did a video on it. Gosh, years and years ago. I don't even know how many years ago now. And in that video, I had talked about this change to the way that the numbers that are being presented are now like not exactly, I don't want to say like they're fake, but they're not the real numbers, right? And they're numbers that are good enough for you to do your investments and your time, business planning, retirements and stuff like that. The numbers are good enough for that, but they're not the real numbers, right? Because the real numbers have to be hidden for national security reasons. So you're not going to be able to see the real numbers. And they said that these numbers that you see are not the real ones, but they are good enough for you to do whatever it is that you need to do. And I thought to myself, can't do that to me. You can't do that to me because now I don't trust you. I don't care if they're, good enough or whatever. I don't trust you. That's it. It's out you threw that out the window. So now it's unfortunate that I can't trust these things because I know that they're just legal lies. So I think, okay, well, how do I still look at the economy? It's just like, if you just don't trust any of these numbers, they're all fake. And I think, okay, so it's probably somewhere in some sort of accuracy is the direction in which that they are going and the amount that they go. So I started kind of looking more towards that kind of thing. But the actual number itself, I don't think is really that important. I think it's more the direction that it's going and the amount that it goes. So I mean, at least, from a few years ago, anyhow, that's the way I kind of seen it. All right. Everything is offer you don't have to accept. Lackluster in America and James Freeman. Just a few. You're right, we'll be trampled and then you have to seek recourse in the courts, which costs money. Yes, MLB. All-nighter seeker. When will we lose it all? All right. Israel. You don't lose it all. You gain. You buy one rental at a time and you become a property owner and you live a life of freedom and abundance while providing good quality homes for happy tenants. That's what you do, right? Don't wallow and die. I don't know. Like after this weekend, I was just like, man, I am just like, I don't know why I'm not doing it. Like I know what it is. It's the fear factor. And it's like with Matthew telling that story about how the first house and the 40th house, he had the same amount of anxiety and fear and pressure and all the other stuff that was like, spinning through his head. It was just like, this is the way it is. It's just the way you have to go about it. And it's like, it's the unknown. And that's what's really hard, is that magic is found in the unknown, and most people are fearful of the unknown. And I know I'm one of these people. I mean, I'm trying to admit it to the point that I'm like, okay, I'll face that and go do something about it. But that's really what holds anybody back. Like, I mean, I was talking to a lady this weekend. I can't remember her name. She was very sweet. And she was just like, yes, I'm house hacking now. And she didn't really want to talk about it that much. And I was just like, well, you're house hacking because, you must be, working a day job. And she was like, I like to not have the W-2, and everybody talks about the W-2 instead of like a day job. Like to me, I don't look at it like the W-2. I look at it as my day job because that's what it is what I do during the day. Right. But I don't think she really wanted to like come out and tell me what she did. And and when she did, I was just like, it was a very, a very like how should I put it, like an honest job, right? I mean, it was just like, no, and like my wife did something very similar to that for a while, and it was just like it was a very honest job. It wasn't like anything else, but I think it was just like I don't think she like, I don't know if it was like maybe felt like it was like a low thing, like maybe like I don't know, but to me, I was just like, no, that's cool, but that's what was amazing about it. It was just like this was a job that like most people wouldn't think that you would be able to be a homeowner with, right? But yet she was doing it, and I thought, man, that's cool. That's like I love hearing stories like this because this is the type of encouragement that people would need in order to face that fear and stepping into the unknown. Um, but that's where the magic is found. Like you'll never find any kind of awesomeness in something that you know what it's going to be, right? Like if you know what the experience is going to be, it's not going to be that awesome. But if you're not quite sure of what the experience is going to be like, then it becomes awesome. Just like this weekend was way awesome for me. I had no idea what to expect. Wasn't even sure. Like I was not kind of, I was pretty nervous about going up on stage. And so like all day I had like this set of notes that I'm just kind of like going over and I'm just thinking about it and just kind of, just rehashing it over and over in my head. And getting up on stage, like when I first get up there, it's like, weak knees and kind of, feeling kind of tingly and almost like palms are starting to sweat and stuff like that. And you grab the mic and kind of stutter a little bit when you get going, but then you just start firing it off. And next thing you know, man, you're like 45 minutes into it. And it's just like, man, I don't want to get off stage. Like, I want to keep going. I'm loving this, and that's where like, the excitement and the awesomeness and everything comes from is just like, I'm in that unknown. It's just like, man, am I going to get up there? Am I going to stumble or whatever? Even though I've done it a few times, I still like, you get up in front of a few hundred people and it's a little nervous, especially when, you're not sure how people are going to, receive your message, I mean, like, I mean, I'm kind of blunt with a lot of stuff out there. I mean, I don't sugarcoat a lot of things because, I mean, I got to be honest with not only myself, but with with the people who are talking to me, I mean, if I hear something that I call out, I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk or something or anything like that. It's just the way I see it. And we can have a discussion about it, like one of the, not to bring it up because like, but like I did the Silver Symposium and Patrick had those tokens, right? And I think it's cool. It's a Bitcoin token, has a decal on it that has the public key, so you can like send as much Bitcoin to this as you want. Then if you tear that decal off, there's another key underneath it that's the private key, right? And now that private key you can access the Bitcoin from. And I thought, man, this is so cool. You got like this little token. It's like a physical Bitcoin. You can load up as much Bitcoin as you want on it and you can give it to somebody. There is some trust factor that kind of goes along with it, but if you trust the people who made it, enough that it's real, then you can go ahead and like use it as like a physical Bitcoin and pretty much like do transactions with it if you wanted to. You can check to see how much is on there, so you know exactly what it is. And again, if you just kind of go set the trust factor aside, this is a pretty cool way of going about it. The token itself has a half an ounce of silver, so no matter what, the token is worth something, right? I mean, it's a silver coin at the at the very least of it. But then it has this Bitcoin, kind of application going on with it as well. I mean, I'm like, man, I love this idea. I think it's just absolutely great, right? Perfect bartering tool if I ever had seen one. And so we're sitting around discussing this thing, and it was actually coming back from the we went to the Sunshine Mint. We had toured the Sunshine Mint. And it was on the way back from that. I was just like, God, I like this thing. I said, you know what? I have a tendency to leave these things in my pocket. What happens if it goes through the wash and it screws the decals up? And all of a sudden it was just like, oh, and I'm like, oh, sorry guys, I didn't mean to ruin your idea here or anything. And then they got to thinking about it. They're like, no, we're gonna have to etch the private key onto the coin or something like that. And they started thinking about ideas to make it a little bit more durable. But just throwing that out there, like, because they've already had a bunch of these coins in production. I'm like, there's kind of kind of an error in the process here. There's a little bit of a fault. And by bringing that up, I don't think anybody had quite thought of it to that fashion, because I do, like, I always carry a piece of silver with me, and it always ends up in the damn laundry. And so I thought about that. I was just like, if it ruins that decal, but I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with it. It was just like that ain't gonna work for me because I always put my stuff in the lawn. It's gonna end up getting damaged. And so by saying that actually to them, it got them thinking about it. And they're like, no, we're gonna have to change the way this is because you're right. And I don't know if they ever did or anything, but that was the move that they were gonna had suggested while sitting there in the limousine on the way back anyway. But that's the way I do it. I mean, I'm going to be truthful with everything. Thank you very much, Toaster. I'm subscribing to them right now. Okay, what conference was that? Um, which one are we talking about? The one we just recently did? Zuber's one rental at a time, 50,000 K subscriber event. It was awesome. Good times. It was good energy. It was just like the energy there was I mean, the energy at them are usually pretty good anyway, but this one was really nice. I think the people are a little bit more I think it was probably because I think everybody there was a little bit more like in the same mindset than it was like because a lot of times like maybe at some of the other events that I had gone to, like everybody has like these different types of ideas of what it is that they have like, for business or real estate or commercial or whatever it is that they invest in. And they kind of share all these different ideas. This one was more singular to just real estate, which was pretty cool for me to be there because I was the only one who didn't talk real estate. I was the only one who talked macroeconomics. I think, anyway. I'm pretty sure I was the only one who did. And so that kind of gave me a little bit different, like, kind of edge there as far as bringing some different kind of information to them. But everybody there was pretty much focused in on real estate. And that made it like really unique as far as that camaraderie towards the conversations that we all had, because it's all about encouragement and how it is that you deal with maybe particular issues or, circumstances or some of the awesome things that had happened, the great stories that came from it. So all that sharing in that same mindset and direction, I think was probably one of the better parts of that event that I had experienced from being there. All right. Juan G, one rental at a time, 50K subscriber celebration, priorities, that deal breaker. Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm staying away from pets, pretty traumatized from teen years, but I'm a dude as well. I like things, not people. Well, I mean, my youngest boy, I think it's important for him to have a dog. I mean, I think it's an experience that I think like, especially if you have like, a country setting like I have, I think it's pretty important for that, not only that friendship, that bond that they make, but then also to be able to take care of that dog to make sure it's a healthy dog and, you know, just that interaction, the energies that you share, that it's important. It's an important thing. And he loves dogs. I mean, he just absolutely loves them. So. All right, Simon, maybe you should start a Patreon account. Actually, Brody, I do have a Patreon account. I mean, in fact, I have a few people who have joined just recently, and I think they joined the Patreon when I started saying like be a member of the channel. I think they just automatically kind of went to Patreon. So I'm gonna try and post some stuff there, but I'm not very active on Patreon, even though now I have a few people like signed up for a Patreon membership. But the link is down in the description if you wanted to join the Patreon. And I don't know, maybe I'll do some writings or something like that, and maybe share some of my my next video thoughts. I'll type them out first and post them on Patreon before I do the video. If I can find the time to do it, because to me it's all about time. But of course, here I am doing a 2-hour live stream. So, all right. What did the dyslexic atheist say? There is no dog. You could do more detailed, higher priced membership videos. Yeah, and I was thinking about that one too, Brody. I do have the UE Collective, and I saw somebody had joined it, and it was only one person, and I wasn't sure what I could do for them for doing it, but it's $50. It's $50 a month, and I don't know. If I had a few people join it, if you're watching the live stream and you want me to do some like more detailed videos, maybe what we could do is do some communications on that platform to maybe narrow it down to a particular topic that we want to have like some deeper discussions, like some really deeper ones into understanding maybe whatever it is, the concepts that we were going after. But I mean, if we want to do that, I mean, I guess if a few people joined it, you know, I'm not encouraging it right now because I'm not sure what to do with it. But if you want to contribute to the Uneducated Economist and you want to, you know, help sponsor the channel by being a member, that's really what I'm going for. I want the, you know, the viewers to sponsor the channel as opposed to actually taking sponsorships. Do that, and we'll set up the community and we'll start doing that. So yeah, it's $50 a month though if you want to, you know, if you want to try and something out. If that's too much, maybe let me know and I'll try and set one up for maybe $20 or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I'll be here for you for $50 a month. I'll cover whatever topic you want, man. All right. What did you mean? The title says everyone will suffer in a miserable existence. I'm wondering when the new money turns off, whether like the bond market crashes, right? Because that's really where the new money comes from, is the debt issuance, right? Brings the new money in. So once the bond market, once the entire like debt issuance thing begins to fail, and I'm not sure exactly how that would look or what kind of outcome changes would come from that. So the debt cycle, if it was to ever come to an end, the new money would not come into the system. And I don't care who you are, if like the whole debt system collapses, you know, it's going to come down to some really devastating dark times. Now, I don't really anticipate that, right? But that's really what it would be if the new money turns off. So I don't see the new money turning off, right? And so what that's going to end up meaning is that the separation between the rich and the poor are going to take place. Now, when I say everyone is going to suffer, no, not everyone. A handful of people are going to do quite well. But the majority of the people are going to be in miserable condition, as that separation from the rich and the poor is going to make it ever more difficult for them to try and get. It's like a wedge. When you're young, you have a real access to get on either side of the wedge, right? When you're 18 years old, you're like at the point, right? You know, one side or the other isn't really that critical at that moment. By the time you're 40 years old, you're down here like at the palm, right? You're way down there. You got to get up here on this side of the wedge. It's almost impossible to do. So you have to be on the right side of the wedge from the very beginning. But if you're way down into it and you're trying to get up on that other side of it, it's like, how are you going to do that, right? You got to follow Lumberjack Landlord, Dion, Zuber, Mike. You got to follow all those guys and figure out how it is that you're going to house hack and get into some property ownership. That's how you got to do it. You got to understand economic conditions, the theories that go behind it. You face your fears and you start becoming a property owner. And the possibilities are out there. I mean, I'm watching people talk about it like, you know, to me, like, I was listening to tons of people telling me the story about how they're getting into their first property. And, you know, I mean, every one of them's nervous about it. Like, you know, it's a fear factor thing that you are going to face. But once you have done it and you're in it, every one of these landlords, every one of these property owners, they're all very happy, excited, helpful, wanting to share their story, how they did it. Like, I mean, it's like, I don't know why anybody would want to like avoid that, you know, like you don't avoid that. You draw towards things like that. What are we talking about today? All right. Yeah, but did I get some super chats down there? Let me go see that. Nakata Curlage? Thank you for the $4.99. What does it say here? Or we can take the means of production and property from the bank elite class, just a suggestion. How do you do that? How do you take it back from those people? I mean, did you really give it to them? How about this? Did they take it from you, or did they actually be the ones who developed it in the first place? So why should you take it from them when it's theirs, right? How did it happen? How is it that you're in a position in which that you're looking at something in which that you feel that you need to take from the elite, right? Take the means of production and property from the banking elite class. Okay. So here's what I find very interesting about this is like, as if they have come in and taken it. Let me tell you, there is no way that they have come in and taken it if you hadn't put the economy in a position for them to come and take it in the first place. All right? That's really what the problem is. It's not them, it was us. We're the ones who are industrious people who decided that we were going to be awesome, and we built all these wonderful things, and we started diving into all this awesome luxuries, and we started bringing in all this awesome money and doing all these wonderful things, and then all this power possibilities came in with men who don't produce anything, who says, hey, we need to govern this stuff, right? And it was just like, so all the efforts that the industrious people had done then get governed by men who don't do anything, but they're really smart, right? And they know how to adjust things within this so-called, fixed economy or something like that, even those economic forces that are at play, but yet they're going to come in here and be helpful, inside of this. I mean, what are they going to do other than take from one class and give to another, or force, money flows into other directions? There's really nothing that government does except for screw around with the economy, right? But understanding that part of things is like, it actually kind of relieves it a little bit, because then you're just like, oh, the government's going to screw around with a bunch of tariffs and taxes and stuff like that. So, of course, this manufacturing will be here, but it won't be very profitable. And then people will wonder why it is that these politicians don't keep the manufacturing here, because they're not realizing that it's economic forces that are preventing it from actually coming back to the United States. I don't blame the elite. Like, I don't blame them, because if I blame them, then I would have to give them credit if the economy was to do better. That's the problem with blaming like any politician or anything out there, is that, like, if you hear it's Biden's fault that we have inflation. Well, what if we have deflation? Are you going to thank Biden for that? Are you going to be like, well, Biden caused inflation, but I can't give him credit for causing deflation, right? I didn't give him credit for inflation either, because I don't believe anything Biden says. Well, I wouldn't know if I had to believe it or not, because I've never heard anything he's ever actually said. So, but regardless of that point, I mean, I just look at the economic forces that are beyond that the governments then interact with. It's just, that's more of what's going on, is the industriousness of the people from 100 years ago is now like showing itself here today. Like, it's like literally been that long. If those people, all those immigrants from all over the world, hadn't converged here into the United States, sharing their ideas, sharing their concepts, sharing their farming skills, sharing all their industrious know-how and capabilities, we never would have risen to what we are today. There was nobody who did that to us except for the industriousness of the people, because we had such a mixing pool of people from around the world sharing ideas at once. That's really what did it. That's why the American people were so awesome back at manufacturing, is because we had all these sharing technology ideas that were from all over the world at once. And it was awesome for us. And all the manufacturing and products that we were distributing around the world had everybody sending us their gold. And that was the major problem that we started to face, is that now we're the hoarders of gold. They were now without transactable money, right? They can't do transactions anymore because we have all their gold. Well, here's a bunch of paper dollars so you can continue to do transactions. And people were like, yeah, okay, we'll do it. And then so goes the problem. Like, you can't stop that from happening. Where's the government action in that, right? Well, let the system fail. Let the redistribution happen. Nobody wanted that. Okay, we'll print a bunch of money. Oh, you guys are bastards. Well, which one is it then, right? Which one do you want? I mean, I don't know, like, which one is going to be there. That's why I don't look at it as a good or bad thing. It's just an is. It's just the way it is, and all right. The supreme law of the land is the Constitution. The Constitution restricts government. That's right. Bill Gates has massive one in Hawaii. I'm starting cooking here. Is a human being a token? At what price value? We are all chattel Charlton. It is really inspiring watching you build a new career out of self-education and passion. Thank you, Yui. Well, thank you, Natty. And I really have to thank, I have to thank the people who are around me. That's really, like, my family was encouraging when I first started the channel. And then as I started building the channel and meeting people, it's there, like, dude, keep going, keep making videos, keep doing what you're doing. And then, like, and then, like, the collaboration with the other guys, it was just like, man, it's hard to believe it actually happens. You know that? It's actually hard to believe that it takes place. Because, when you have something in your life like this and you didn't think you would have anything in your life, it's a lot of it's amazing. It really changes the way you feel and look at things. And so, I enjoy it. Thank you guys for being here. But I have to thank the people around me. The network that you build is really going to determine how you're going to end up, right? You build a good team around you, and I think All Nighter actually brought it up. The team that I think it's the people that helped you get there may not be the people that are going to be there when you succeed. Like, it's not like it's not like you run through people. It's just that new people come into your life, and you elevate in different ways. Like, you share your ideas, you start doing different projects, you start making different things happen, and you might find, like, the partnerships that you had earlier on when you started may not be the same partnerships you have later on, after you've finally gotten moving and going. But yeah, it's an amazing adventure. Here, well, that's why we call human resources where you work. This event had really cooperative energy. People wanted to learn from and help each other. Yeah, that's really what I got out of it too. Like, a lot of people like to share ideas, but I think this particular conference was like really on more on the side of helpful, like useful. Like, these are the steps. Let's do this thing. Like here's the stories of how we got it done. It's not going to come from, like, you're not going to get the magic secret by going to a conference. There's no speaker. There's no, like, you could go to 100 of those things. It isn't going to do it, right? What it's going to take is literally like stepping into the first step of doing it and making it happen, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to screw stuff up. It's like making a YouTube channel, right? You got to learn. And part of, like, doing YouTube, I mean, I'm not saying you jump into a property not knowing. What you do is you go in with those fears that what it is that you had, like these other stories that you had, that they're going to be there, and you face those things and you go for it. But it's like, with me, with the YouTube channel, people ask about it, I say, post your first videos. You don't know what they're going to look like. You don't even know what you're doing, right? But you're going to learn from that first video something that was correct and something that wasn't correct, right? And that's the same thing with everything that you learn. And unfortunately, with houses, people see, like, there's so much to know, and there's so many different strategies of possibilities, right, that you could take with it. And so that's really what it comes down to, is you got to figure out what strategy is yours, and then you execute that strategy and you go for it, right? And you got to start taking the steps to going for it. Whether it's a house hack or, teaming up with other people or whatever it is, They need our real time and energy in exchange for their worthless paper, or they don't live large. All right, I agree. Why else would corporations take out life insurance on their employees? Constitutions or contracts. People need to relearn the unanimous Declaration of Independence. Yes, everything is contractual. Once I learned contract law, my eyes were opened. I highly recommend a husky. I raised 3 of them at the same time. Teaches responsibility. Yeah, I agree. Contract law, flat earth equals flat earth in my book. Oh, God. What up, EU, and everyone, love you all. Alright. $2 from Jadango. George doing a 2-part live on the dollar bubble crash. Yeah. Let's celebrate their 20th super on live stream. Oh, right on. Thank you so much, Django. That's cool of you. Alright. I don't know about George's. I'll have to check that out. I love your move to have the viewers support the channel instead of you getting sponsors. Even happier to be a member knowing this. Well, thank you, CBR8. Well, I mean, the thing is like, the dollar membership, that was for me, right? I mean, I know it was for you, and I say it's for you, but that's for me. That's my encouragement. That's my ambition. That's for me to try and do something that I can level up what it is that I was doing to try and bring you more value, so that I would actually have something that I could sell you. And that's what the whole point of, like, that membership was. It was more for me to get me in that kind of mindset But that's really what I want for the channel. I want the viewers to sponsor the channel, to be, you know, the stable support for the channel, so that I can not have to think about, like, you know, because the thing is like, I can't sit here and be poor for, like, I'm not poor. Like, I can make my bills, right? But I can't sit here stagnant, in my opinion. Like, I put the videos out there, but I'm not like really actually trying to progress in acquiring more money, right? I mean, just straight up. I put the videos out there, I'm doing this membership, but really it's putting myself into that mindset of being an entrepreneur, trying to provide products, trying to be useful, trying to, you know, do stuff that is going to be more in line with what it is that's going to advance and elevate me to that next higher level that I really want to go to, you know, where the Camaro will be in the videos, you know. And I appreciate that. And thank you everybody who's joined the channel and become a member. All right. Of course, I'm really selling it. All right. Nikita, well, that's why we have relationship partnerships. $50 a month, and maybe I'll figure out what you get for that. You know, I feel that I try pretty hard to bring you some good information within the regular videos, including these live streams. You know, the membership videos I think are really deep already on their own. So I think the $50 membership would be a little bit more customized to the viewers themselves. You know, we can do something like on the community page. I can post, like, you know, for the next video, and we can have, like, you know, a conversation within the comment section about like what videos what we should cover as far as that goes. But it's the UE Collective, so I want that to be more about, you know, the videos that you want to see as opposed to the ones that I want to put out, you know, because that's really what I do, is the ones that I want to put out. But we can change that UE Collective to be more customized to the viewers themselves, to discuss things that, you know, are that you want to discuss. Who would buy farmland in the Midwest? Go figure. Toaster, you propose small microeconomic contracts between individual skilled producers as an alternative economic model. Huh. All right, Brody's so honest. Maybe I'll figure out which, yeah. But that's actually kind of true, Brody. I mean, I think that's a good statement. And you're right, it is honest, all-nighter. No Trust pointing out we never and have transformed admiralty laws once we land on soil. They kept the terminology ships. I was under the impression that landlording is not all that impressive an investment. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm impressed by those guys. I tell you what, you can generally tell the attitude of somebody's life by the interactions that they have with you. Like, if they're standoffish, if they're like confrontational, whatever, it's probably because whatever it is that they have going on in their life isn't going so well. And I know a few business owners who are like, they kind of upset, you know. I mean, generally some of these people are restaurant owners, but you know, they're not necessarily in that higher, positive, encouraging, beneficial energy. Now, I am like kind of in a selected group of that type of environment, type of people, you know. Like, I wouldn't have somebody in my life that was negative anyway. So it was just like, I kind of gravitate towards people who are being more positive, encouraging, and trying to put out, you know, helpful, useful stuff. So it just like, that's who you're going to end up being around if that's who you're around. And that ends up being the landlords that I know. So there is the horror stories that I do hear from landlords, though, right? And that comes from being at the lumberyard, right? So like the YouTube side of things, it's always about encouragement and awesomeness and all the great events that come from it. But being at the lumberyard, I also hear some of the devastating stories that landlords experience from trashing the apartments, you know, which I know the other ones talk about as well. But like, some of these people, it's not easy to recover from, because they were not in a good position to begin with when this happened, right? So, you know, owning the house ends up being somewhat of a burden to them, and they're just like very, you know, upset with the whole situation that they have put them, or that they happen to be in at the time. And, you know, the circumstances changes or whatever. But I happen to be just in a location that that can exist. Like you don't generally hear like a group of like you where you can concentrate landlords like you can at a lumberyard or hardware store because they're there, you know, repairing their places or working on a maintenance. And I know a lot of like the guys that, you know, like as far as like, you know, a lot of these guys will use property managers, so they're not even involved anything within the actual repairs or maintenance of the house or anything. But I do hear some of the horror stories that come from it. And so, yeah, it's not always like, you know, just these great experiences, but that's the case with no matter what you do, right? And generally speaking, most of the landlords that I talk to are generally in higher spirits, very, you know, positive thinkers for the most part. And business owners sometimes are not, you know, like when they, you know, especially restaurant owners, they're happy in the summer and pissed in the winter, you know. All right. They tricked us into consent. Yeah. We can take it back, Sparkles. Fraud has no statute of limitations. And you guys are all up in the Constitution. Hey, let's cruise down here a little ways. Oh, there was a super chat. Let's go look at that. All right. Nikita, 499. Reply to S. I agree. I agree. Industriousness of the people is the and where is the elite banking class is parasitic. Question is, what do we replace it with? You can't. See, that's the problem, right? Okay. What do you want to replace it with? You have two choices, right? Just two. We've talked about this all day in this video now. You can either be on the gold standard or you can issue out debt. If you issue out debt, you're going to have this banking elitist class that are going to separate themselves from the rich from the poor, and they're going to be way up here, and everybody else is going to be down here, and you're going to find people down here being real pissed about the people up there. But if you didn't do this, then you would have to be in a business cycle that then limits the amount of transactions that are going to be available out there. So which one do you want? Do you want to work? Do you want to hoard money, like work and hoard money and live through the cycle? Or do you want this continuous debt-based currency in which that we have somewhat of a stable life down here on the lower end, right? And those rich elitist people can separate themselves ever farther away. And you have the opportunity to do that too. I mean, you can do it just the same as they are doing it, right? I mean, you can. I mean, I see people doing it every day. Right? I could do it too, right? And so I'm not mad about it though. I'm not discouraged. I'm just saying, and I appreciate the 499 too, bro. You know, I'm serious. Like I really appreciate that. But I just like, this is the change in the mindset that I think is really needed in order to elevate yourself beyond what it is that, you know, is holding. I mean, maybe you're not held back. Maybe you're doing quite well, you know, but that's the problem with it is that exists. If that didn't exist, we would have the gold standard. If we have the gold standard, we would have business cycles that would then hoard the money and then redistribute it back out again. So if you were very industrious when the gold standard was operation, that's awesome. You could hoard the money, but then at some point you're going to run out of business because there's not going to be enough transactions going on out there or people with the gold to do transactions, and you're going to have to redistribute it back out again. And that's going to be a pretty painful experience. There's no cycle that says everybody sings Kumbaya. Okay? It doesn't work like that. It's just, it literally rises and falls and, you know, creation and destruction, you know, on and off, winter, summer. It's just like, you know, it's cyclical. It's just like, there's literally nothing you can do about that. And you can try and govern it all you want, but that's not gonna work either. You know, I mean, I guess people like to fight about that idea about governing it and ARIA and all this other stuff, but there's economic forces that are far bigger at play that are better to understand. And it's better to understand those economic positions that you can take that take advantage of the fact that we have a debt-based currency that can then get you the possibilities of having 100 doors that pay you rent every single month, and you can live a life that is of luxury, right? I mean, not saying like, you know, living that life of luxuries is everybody's end goal. In fact, most of the time, the people that, I mean, although they live a pretty decent life, they're just the same as you and me. Like they don't, you know, I mean, I guess there is like the difference, like, you know, the idea that you're going to fly coach as opposing to getting with your buddies and renting a private jet to fly somewhere. I mean, there's the huge difference inside of that. But ultimately, I've communicated with billionaires before, and they are just the same as you and me. Like, you know, they just happened to figure this thing out and ran with it. And most of us get upset that, you know, we haven't figured that out. right? That doesn't make any sense. Go and follow them, figure it out. And thank you again, Nikita. I really do appreciate the $4.99. Like, I know I kind of sound like a little bit aggressive back towards that. I didn't want it to come off like that, but I do want to, like, we can't focus blame, because if we focus blame on it, the fixing of that is not exactly an awesome event that comes from it. I mean, you might be able to take the power away from the elite, but it also is like, going to be massive depressionary, horrible moments for the rest of the economy as well. So it's just like everybody gets to share in the hellish experience. It's not like they fail and we get to be like, yeah, right on, look how awesome we are, continuing on with our lives the way we normally did, as they all suffer in misery. It doesn't, like, you can't seclude them out of it, right? So you can't change the system back to like a gold system. Like, it's got to fail, like the bubble, like the bonds and everything else and all that's got to just completely like evaporate in the new system of barter, and then the reestablishment of currency. And like, I don't see it happening. I think the debt-based currency is going to be kept alive for as long as possible, and it could last many more generations. I don't know, especially if you get into digital currencies and negative interest rates and stuff like that. I mean, who knows where the possibilities could go. All right. Yes, Joseph, they have verified proof that I am an entity. If not, I am a human. Oh, you guys are talking that stuff. That's cool. The state has already made their claims. Okay, I'm going to see if I... Big task. Okay, it's definitely a mind and vocabulary shift. It really is. And, and that's one of the things, like, even old Nider was pointing it out. He was just like, dude, it's your mental block, right? And I don't know exactly how he phrased it, but he did tell me on that. It was just like, you're holding yourself back, ultimately. And, hanging out with all those guys, it's just like, God, I really am too. And I made all kinds of excuses, I make them all up, because I always do. I'm an excuse maker, I guess. Saying like I don't like my area, and I work the day job, so I can't travel to a particular location, and being the first house, you want to be near it, and all this other crap. So I just made up a bunch of stuff that, really doesn't make any sense to why I'm not doing it, but I did do that, and I'll self-admit that, because I want to see other people do it, right? I want to see other people take the information, take the network, take the community, and the sharing information that everybody is willing, the helpfulness that comes from everybody, and then advance themselves. Like, that's the whole point of doing all this, is like, I'm trying to share information and be useful for people, and hoping that will come back to me in an abundance. Love your video on POS vehicles to offset your expenses. Why do you think of investing in mobile homes on private land for rental? Bentley, that is a really good one. I actually talked with somebody, I can't remember his name. I got his business card in the house, but that was his big thing, is he was pretty much just the money man in it, and he had like a team of people that would help him do it. But he pretty much, I think he was like buying like acreage, and then conditioning that acreage to facilitate trailers, like mobile homes, and then filling them up and selling them, right? So like, that's like never once getting into like, construction of like building a traditional home. He just buy land and then condition that land to take the trailer, and then basically, like, I guess building trailer parks for the most part, or manufactured home facilities or something like that, residential parks. But he seemed pretty happy, and he was like, no, it's really profitable, and all this stuff. Like, he was kind of talking about it, and I'm like, man, there's a trailer park that I think the guy might be willing to get out of, and that might be might be the option to go with, is trailers as opposed to like traditional housing. But who knows? Like, I mean, I think anything that you can find out there that's going to pay rent or going to have some sort of cash flow. I mean, I don't care if it's a house or a trailer or whatever. I mean, I was talking to a guy who owned poker machines. He rented, like, he would buy these poker machines, rent them to a gaming hall. I don't know how this state worked. I think it was in Florida. And then he would get he would rent the machine, so he got money for the rent, and then he would get a cut of the profits that the machine would take from the gambling. And I was just like, Jesus, man, like how did... how do you find a niche like that? Like, how do you find that network, to get in something like that? But, it was just like, that's what he had done. And he was actually more into construction and real estate, but he had this as like a side gig. And I forget what he told me. It was something like, he was making like $30,000 a month or something just off these damn poker machines that he was renting out. And I'm thinking, man, that's like, how easy is that, All right. Then Will can have total consciousness going for us, I guess. Okay. Bentley not being a dick, but what do you think about that investment? I don't know what you guys were talking about. All right, UE, be my dad and run a bakery with me, please. I don't know anything about a bakery. Lumberjack landlord turned that question on his buddy, and that forces thought and consideration from the original questioner and works well. Right, and we have Marsh. I've always wondered about your opinions on different topics aside from the market and the Fed and things of that nature. Kind of open question, but what's your opinion on climate change? On climate change? I don't know. I'm an environmentalist at heart, right? So me personally, and the way that I conduct myself is like I try to have as little impact on the environment as I can. Little impact on the earth. Like if I could leave this earth without having any real impact on it at all, then that would be awesome. That ain't gonna happen. I drive cars and I do things and eat food and like I do all the stuff, right? So to try and like be conditioned to deal with the fact that there's a climate change through laws and all the other crap that goes along with it, I find it very questionable on its legitimacy, right? And whether or not it's actually done for the sake of the environment. And even if we were to absolutely destroy ourselves because of our impact to the environment, the earth will heal. Right? It will, over time, grow new plants over the top of everything that we have done, and it will all be covered up by nature, and eventually a healthier earth will be left back here after all the people are gone. So that's my feelings about climate change. I put very little thought into climate change, but I do see like the political impacts that then begin to take place within the industrial part of things, like, the movement into EV and stuff like that. That has quite a bit of like, kind of impact or environment or economic impact on things. But I don't know, like I don't have any kind of real belief that there's like, this imminent danger or something like that. Austrian School of Economics, yeah. Free market. The truth is only fair system is barter. I agree, sinful, but so limiting too. I agree. I think the Biden administration made at least a little bit of this problem. Okay. Do you think that the Biden administration would even have the ability to create a little bit of this problem if it wasn't for the fact that the economy is in the condition that it is in? Just suggestion. I mean, think about this. Donald Trump, before he left office, was screaming at Jerome Powell, wanting to fire him, saying that the Federal Reserve should be printing money and taking interest rates into negative territory. This is what Donald Trump was saying openly out there in the media. Okay? Now, I just laugh at that because I don't believe he actually wanted that to take place. I mean, to me, that was a very clear sign of a credible threat to try and lower the inflation expectation and raise the real interest rates. That's a little bit difficult for a lot of people to kind of understand because it's not, I'm not trying to like, put anybody down for not knowing what that means. It's just but that's really what it was happening, right? If you can lower the inflation expectation, you can raise the real interest rates. By Donald Trump coming out on the media saying he wants to fire Jerome Powell and, that he should be printing money and that there is no inflation. There's no inflation. The Fed should be printing money. Take interest rates into negative territory. We'd be in a much better place if we were to do that, right? By saying that, it literally gets the perception out there to the people that there's no inflation taking place. It lowers their inflation expectation. That raises the real interest rates. And that has its own economic impact on the economy within itself. So, Do they have an impact? Yes, absolutely. If the economy was not in the condition it was in, then they would never be able to even have the possibilities of the power to do it. That's what's important to understand. They're not doing anything but interacting with the economy, right? And even if it does seem to have changed, it's changing because the economy is allowing it to happen. All right. And that's the bigger understanding of it is like if all that industriousness that had taken place back through the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, right? All that massive like industrialization of the United States, building all those beautiful products, sending all that wonderful stuff all over the world, and all the world sending us their gold, we wouldn't be in the position we are today. So you can go ahead and blame Biden, right, for a lot of the conditions that we're in today, or you can say, hey man, this can go back and all the way to the 20s and then all the way back to the, it's just like, it's easier to understand it from the economic forces that are at play, because then you can look at the history of it happening. You can see the cycles taking place. You can see why the industries are leaving. You can find why the immigration has come. You see the economic forces that are at play if you understand them. But if you don't understand what those economic forces are, then you're going to go into assumptions, right? And since, like, I even had a bartender yesterday at the airport who I hope, if he's watching, no offense, bro, not one bit whatsoever, but he correlated it because that's what he did. He just gave it that meaning, right? He says, all I know is that Biden came in and now I go to the grocery store and my prices are up. And I'm like, oh. I could say the sun came up today and now the prices are up, right? I mean, it was just like you correlated two things that may not necessarily be the same thing, but yet because they happened at the same time, you just assume that's what it is, right? And because of the mainstream narrative out there and all the push and attention and, and accusations that are occurring, it makes it very difficult to then try to wrap your head around the economic force that has taken place, because now you're going to political blame. You want to find the person who did this. It is just like, it's like they're doing this because of the bigger reason. All right. So I mean, did they have a little something? Yeah, they had a little something to interact with it. It's not like they're completely 100% benign, right, to the entire thing. I understand that the stimulus checks being pushed out to the people was definitely an inflationary event that came directly from the government's actions, right? I get that. They would never been able to do it if the economy wasn't in the position that it is in today, right? That's where I'm trying to get at. That stimulus package never would have existed in a gold standard, right? But because we moved into a debt-based currency, which I guess is political, but damn it, if the people didn't want to be able to do transactions, right? I mean, you could have denied it. You could have said, no. I don't want to do transactions. Right? But nobody would do that. Like, everybody wants to do the transactions. Everybody wants to sell their product or their service so they can get the money. And so if you can't do it, you're like, man, what am I going to do? You're going to do the transaction. Give me the money, right? And if there's no gold, then you're going to take anything that anybody else is willing to accept. And that is not, I mean, that's almost not even political. Like, think about tally sticks, right? Back, 400 years ago or whatever it was, I don't even know how long it goes, there was tally sticks, right? Little pieces of wood that would be used for currency because there simply wasn't enough gold and silver in the area to be used for transactions. So they had to come up with something. They had these little pieces of sticks, right? So the tally stick, if you're not familiar with it, like, and we're talking like, back in the days of castles and knights and stuff like that, right? Okay. So they would take these tally sticks, they would make some marks on it, and then they would split the stick. So it was like you could match it up. And then they would take part of that stick and they would put it in a secure location. That was like the evidence that there was some currency out there. And then the other stick would go out into the economy and be used for doing the transactions, right? That stick could be matched back up with the king or whatever. And then that was like the basis of the currency, right? And these were tally sticks. I mean, this was used for like currency for like 400 years, right? And it totally worked. But there had to have been some very, hardcore discipline to make sure that there was always enough, or that the transactions that were available out there weren't like, just all of a sudden flooded with all these tally sticks because the king wanted to do a bunch of spending or something like that. It wouldn't have worked like that, right? So it took some serious discipline to make sure that these things worked, but the only reason why they were even in existence is because there wasn't enough gold and silver to do the transactions that they needed, so they had to come up with something, right? So ultimately it was a piece of paper, but it wasn't, it was wood, right? But that's it. It's just like the people want to do the transactions. And if you want to do the transactions and there's no gold, then what are you going to do? Right? Nothing. Absolutely nothing, until somebody says, hey, I got this piece of paper that's backed by gold, and I'm going to print up a bunch of them, and you're all going to be able to do transactions imagining that you're actually trading for gold. Doesn't that sound fun? Right? And the people are like, hell yeah, because look at me go, man. I got new clothes, and I got a ribeye, and I got all the stuff that I wanted because that guy over there is producing it, and I can transact with them. And see, this is the problem with it. Take that availability away from them. Get rid of all that paper. All of a sudden, everybody's like, stopped, nothing, all done. Who has all the gold? Yeah, time for you to redistribute it, right? You see, it's just like, it's cyclical. It's just like, you just have to understand how it goes, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Even in the political environment and all the stuff that's happening, they're just interacting with those conditions, and it's very impactful. I mean, I'm not trying to deny that. It will smash you right in the face at times, if you're not quite aware of it, but again, it's still part of the economic events that are out there that are taking place. All right, I think let's see. We already read that. Does Astoria know about you? Deja vu. Yeah. I grew up in Astoria, right? So, and I mean, at least in the county, and I work at like the only hardware store in Astoria. I have a YouTube channel that's fairly popular, and then I do like bingo calling at the local tavern. I've been doing it for like 15 years, and it's a bit of somewhat of a famous thing in Astoria, the meat bingo down at the workers. And so a lot of the locals here in Astoria know about the Sunday night meat bingo down at the workers, and they know who I am from that. So a lot of people in Astoria know me either as the YouTuber, the bingo guy, or the dude down at the hardware store, right? And some people know me as all three. But it's really funny how, like, I mean, I'll have somebody come up to me and it was like, dude, I was going through YouTube and you just popped up. I didn't realize you had this YouTube channel. It's huge. It's awesome. And I'm like, yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, my whole life you didn't realize I had a YouTube channel going all this time, right? And they're like, yeah, man, that's way cool. They knew me all kinds of other ways, but they didn't know I had a YouTube channel. So, yeah, Astoria does know about me, but does everybody know about me? Sure. For what reason? Yeah. All right. All can leave out religion. I agree. All right. All-nighter. Okay. How long do you think downturn will last? Are you talking about like this recent, like what we're experiencing right now? How long can it last until unemployment rises? I guess. Because like right now, everybody is so confused about the economy. I was trying to find some videos of any economist on any mainstream media explaining something about average inflation rate over time, like just even a hint of it anywhere, right? And it's just not there, right? So it's pretty apparent that the Federal Reserve has the credible threat. Like they got a leash on it big time. I mean, they don't have for us, but it doesn't matter for the handful of people who are watching the channel here and the 300 people who are at Zuber's conference. But everybody else, they don't see it. Nobody sees the major credible threat that's being played right now. So how long can it last? It's going to last a while, and I believe it's going to last until the Federal Reserve goes to adjust monetary policy again. But this is what's funny about it. When they go to adjust monetary policy, it's because we are in a bad situation. Right? Like, people are looking forward to the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates. That means we're in a bad situation. Isn't this like, this is the backwards thinking of the economy now? This is how, like, I mean, I managed to have moved completely out of like what it is that a lot of people are feeling out there into a whole different realm, because I find it very ironic that people are looking forward to the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates, having no idea that it's going to be a bad economy that's causing them to do that. I mean, it's just, I'm like, all right, man, like, to me, so that's like, I don't see it as a good or bad thing, right? Hey, wherever they go. I'll adjust whatever it is that I need to do to appropriately fit into what it is that you have going on there. People want that magic answer. They're like, no, I want to know when I get to time it, when I get to time this thing. And it was just like, shoot, man, I'm no market timer, man. Like, I mean, I'm not, like, I couldn't tell you when, like, it's going to happen on, July 18th, 2028, you're going to be, like, who could do something like that? It's all about the direction, right? The economic forces that are at play right now, and understanding why the interactions and the efforts are being, like, if it seems so confusing to you, it's because it is a confusing thing that's happening, right? It's not simple. And so when people want to apply simplicity to it, it doesn't work, because then a lot of assumptions start to pour in. And once you start assuming, you start ending up with blame and accusations and all kinds of stuff that happen from it, instead of just logically understanding it for what it is. All right, 247 people still watching. Oh my gosh, how much power I got? Well, I got 30%, so I guess we'll keep going here. All right, paying you rent via Section 80%. All right. Question: why credit card companies' stocks are going up if more people are not paying their credit card? Well, I would imagine, okay, and I'm this is just a complete assumption on this because I really don't know, but I'm assuming if I was to think about the product that they hold, even though it's a defaulting product, the debt itself, right, is the product. So the amount of debt that people are taking out is increasing the amount of product that they have, right? And once you have increased that product, you can sell that product. It's a valuable thing. It becomes an asset, right? And like I said, even though these people are defaulting on it, at this point, it's not defaulted, and it's still an asset, possible asset in the future, even though it's a risk one, right? Or a high risk one. But as more people are taking out credit card debt, there's more of that particular product out there, right? So again, whether or not that's going to hurt them or benefit, that the end result of that is a different thing. I'm just thinking of, like, why, and I don't know. I mean, that's just an assumption too, right? We're in a bubble, it will crash. We're in a bubble. No one listens to Warren Buffett because he is rich and don't trust rich people. That attitude is self-destructive. Yeah, but it's not just a matter of listening to rich people. It's a matter of actually knowing and communicating and engaging with people of, like, wherever it is that you want to be, you have to surround yourself with those type of people, right? Like, that was one of the reasons why, like, I probably don't have a whole lot of people that I hang out with here in my local areas, because I used to drink a lot, right? And everybody that I basically hung around with drank, right? And so that was all our interactions, was everything we did, we would be drinking beer or doing whatever. I didn't want to do that anymore, so I had to kind of exclude myself from those type of like activities that were happening, which meant that really I was kind of hanging out by myself, and then you kind of lose connection with people, and they stop inviting you to things and stuff like that. So that's kind of what ended up happening to me, was just like literally giving up drinking, like, took me out of my social circles that I was in. So I actually find it to be a benefit, because after I did that, I started focusing in more on the things that I needed to do, like the chasing of excellence that I'm trying to constantly be on. But I wasn't doing that when chasing pleasures before. And that's how I would always engage myself, is that I would, like, I was talking about this over the weekend too, but, like, I think about it, like, I would chase excellence for 8 hours a day, and then I would blow all that excellence chasing on pleasure for the rest of the night. And then I'd do that cycle again, chase excellence all day, working hard for my boss, trying to earn the money, do the thing, get the money, and then go chase pleasure for the rest of the evening. And then, it's just like, damn, I need to chase the excellence all day and then go and chase excellence some more, right? And then that's all you do, is just chase excellence. When you do that, awesome things happen. Like, being invited to go speak at, conferences such as this, meeting people like G. Edward Griffin, being, within a circle of people who want to help, like the community guys that I was with this weekend. I mean, that's what ends up happening. You chase pleasure, you're going to screw things up. Like, it's okay to go for something pleasurable every once in a while, right? You got to enjoy yourself. But pleasure-seeking things on a continuous basis will absolutely destroy everything. I mean, I guess some people might be able to do it, but I haven't, and I don't know anybody who does. Democracy and greed don't mix. Money, people. We are four things: fear, greed, uncertainty, and doubt. Go back. Passive, no regard investing. The government is heavily invested in big business. I hold myself back too. This weekend ripped that scab off and motivated me to be better. That's right. Like, that's what, like, I think that's really what a lot of these conferences do, is just like, because a lot of us are like, almost sitting and waiting. Like, we're waiting for that, like, almost like permission. I think that's a lot of it. Like, I think we're almost like sitting around waiting for permission to do it. And knowing that there's nobody who's going to come and say, okay, you can do it now, right? Because nobody's coming. There's nobody who's going to come and give you permission except for you. You're the only one who can give you permission to do it, right? And so that's unfortunate for, like, a lot of, like, I mean, I think I probably even suffer in a lot of that myself. Like, thinking about the courses, right? Like, literally, it felt like Matthew, when he was talking to me about the courses he did, it literally felt to me like he was giving me permission. He was just like, dude, you should do these courses. You can do these things. It was, and I'm like, yeah, I know. And he was like, try to, like, you see it or what? And so, like, that right there, like, don't wait around to get permission from somebody to say you're ready. You're ready when you say you're ready, right? And you can say you're ready at any moment. Like, right now is the moment that you say you're ready. And that you don't need to wait around anymore for permission, right? Waiting is over. We're executing. We're moving forward now. And so, that's really where, like, I think, again, the fear factor and just, trying to just dive into the unknown. All right. Define human equals hue of a man, monster. You are either man or woman. All right. Buy a campground RV park, load it with vending machines and laundromat. That's a good idea. Long as you get government approval and permit and license. Democracy is disgusting. Mob rule is a no bueno. I agree with All Nighter on that one. Democracy is no bueno. See, here's the problem. Let's kind of take it down to a really easy example of why it sucks, right? And some things just shouldn't come down to a vote. That's really what it comes down to, right? And let's imagine there's 40 acres, right? And it's divided equally into 4 10-acre spots, right? Each one of these 10 acres has a little tiny ranch thing going on, right? They're raising a few head of cattle on this thing, right? And we're just going to imagine this as our scenario, but you can take this as big as you want. All right? Now, all of the land and everything is just perfect for raising cattle, except the water access is on just one of them, right? Now, there's plenty of water, right? But access to the rest of the properties isn't really available without doing some changes to the way that the water comes into the property and then feeding it to the rest of the properties. Now, it's going to come down to a vote, all right? The four of us are going to vote on whether or not we should take the water from one location, this one property, and distribute it out to the rest of the properties out there. And so everybody gets their vote, and you get a vote too, even though it's your property with the water. So, it's democracy. I guess we get your water, right? See, that's the problem with democracy, is that some things shouldn't come down to a vote. And hey, maybe they should get the water, right? Maybe it should be paid for. Since I'm the one with the property with the water, I'm the lucky one, right? Lucky. I got to choose the right one, and this is the one that I own. I get paid for being in a better position than everybody else is. I shouldn't have to be suffering the consequences of everybody else's bad decision because I made a good decision, right? This is the problem again with democracies, right? It's just like, and I'm not trying to say that there's a better way because I don't want to get involved with politics. I'm just saying, yeah, I agree with all-nighter. And if you can find a better way, that's cool. All right, you are correct again, friend. Yep. All right, big business could buy up all the small homes in America. Neither are in Rebel Capitalist Pro. Infamous NYC, thank you so much for the $2. Buy a boat and do tours on the weekend. Oh yeah, out there, there's a lot of people who do like the really, I think it would be guides, like fishing guides would be really the better business out there. And man, you have to really know what you're doing to do that kind of stuff because you're in really stiff competition. I mean, there's some people out there who know how to fish. Like, I mean, and they can put you on fish right now. And that's, for a lot of people, that's not easy to do. And when these guys are getting paid a lot of money to do it, yeah, you're in some pretty stiff competition. Buy more ExxonMobil stock. I will. In fact, I saw that. I think it was down, wasn't it? I have a friend who owns 3 mobile homes on his private land, and he gets $1,200 a piece of rent income a month. He said the repairs on mobile homes are cheaper than a house. Yeah, they're also a nightmare. Like, they're so shoddily built. But at $1,200 a month, you can really do some pretty decent repairs. I mean, because considering that it generally doesn't cost a lot to repair them, they're just not very well constructed, like durability wise. All right. Hey, Bittner, ironically, I am not. It just doesn't fit right now. I'm not wealthy yet. I really want to be. All right. I left to listen to GG and come back, and what do I see? 296 likes and 250 watching. Outstanding. Hey, thank you very much. We got 274 watching with 331. I love it when I see more likes than I have people watching. That makes me feel pretty good. I know a lot of people are coming in and out of the stream, but how much power do I have left? 24%. Man, we've gone 2.5 hours now. This is crazy. Okay. Hey, Simon, you've commented before that the economy can be conceptualized as the mechanical version of consciousness. Yeah, I really do agree with that. I think that's really interesting. I wonder if you have any thought on it. I was talking with this individual right here. His name's Nicholas Tartaglia. Anyway, I meant to take this book. I saw it was out here still, but I meant to take this book inside and start reading it. But a guy wrote a book. Here, let me cover, so I cover up his name. That's the book right there. And well, let me read the back here. Let us take a position that life is a game of actions defined by economic parameters. Now, if we accept this perspective to hold true with how we observe market forces, then understanding the mechanics of these forces is necessary. The evolution in understanding of our economic reality implies an evolution in individual consciousness, and thus that of the collective of individuals. The purpose of this manifesto is to structure the parameters by which humans can become a homo economicus. I don't know how to say this word. A social animal. Here, let me show it to you. What's that word right there? Bam. All right. A social animal who understands the fundamental mechanics of economics truth by which they operate, conscious evolution and needed for free market principles to dominate, allowing mankind to find and sustain a continuum of prosperity. Now, I was just kind of briefly sharing my idea about, the economy being the mechanical version of consciousness, and this dude lit up and very much had a lot of engaging things to say, very much along that line. So I was I I'm not much of a reader, guys, so it's hard to dive into books and stuff. But this is one book that I was pretty excited to see, considering that I hadn't really ever had anybody like. I mean, I just kind of thought of this idea one day, and when I brought it up, he like lit up like he had been thinking about the same thing, and that's cool. So that means there's other people out there who must be thinking along this same lines, which means that we have somewhat of a new idea of how economics works in the idea of like being the mechanical version of consciousness. Think about this, guys. Like, when you dive into some of the esoteric thinking of like, expanding your consciousness and, having this spiritual awakening and stuff, you kind of all of a sudden, like, and whether it's like a crystal gripping thing that happens or whatever, like I love using that term because I always find like, these people are like, ooh, magic, and so I always laugh at that stuff. But there's something really interesting about getting a reflection of what it is that you are feeling and thinking on the inside, right? So when you look out there at the world, whatever it is that you are experiencing, you have to understand that is a mirror of what it is that you are feeling and thinking and believe, right? It's an exact mirror of that. And so when you understand that, everything then becomes a perception of your own reality. Like literally everything out there is a hologram to what you are thinking. And this is scary to think about in a lot of ways, and especially when you're like, oh, dude, now you've lost me, you're magic, blah, 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 right? But this is how I figured, like, here's the thing, guys. I didn't know what happened to me when my YouTube channel took off, right? And all of a sudden, I'm like, man, what's going on here? All these things are changing. All these communications are happening. All this other stuff. This is not me. This is not what's going on. All of a sudden, like, I just didn't understand it, right? So I ended up having to, like, reverse engineer what was taking place, right? And it really came down to what it was that I was thinking. Like, literally just what I was thinking, right? I want to speak on stage. Have no idea why. I'm thinking I want to speak on stage. Next thing I know, I'm on stage speaking. What in the world? How does that happen? Like, wow. I didn't even try. Like, it just showed up one day. Right? I'd love to meet G. Edward Griffin. Didn't have any clue about it. One day, boom, here you are. You're meeting G. Edward Griffin. You're going to have lunch with them. And then you're going to speak on the same stage to the same audience at a conference with them. What? Didn't try. Thought about it, right? So here's the thing. Everything is basically is a hologram, right? Of everything that you are feeling and thinking on the inside. And so when you understand it is that the YouTube channel, this book, those dice, all of it is a manifestation of what I am thinking, right? And so this is probably one of the hardest things for me to understand, is that when things are happening in my life that I don't like, it's because of what I'm thinking, right? It's because of everything that I am thinking. And so that's really where the big like consciousness shifts changes, in that one day I'm sitting there buying something at a grocery store, and what rips through my mind is not like how I'm going to enjoy the Pepsi that I'm buying, but what I'm thinking of is how every single person on the entire planet had to come together in order for this pop to be here right now in front of me, right? That's what I ended up thinking. That's what I think about. Like how the person right there on the other side of me, right, was part, like everything, every little action, everything that I had done throughout my entire life brought it all the way down to this exact moment, and everybody was involved doing that, right? This is really hard to like try to wrap your head around for the first time, but once you do, you realize, man, I'm responsible for it all. For everything in this entire world, I'm responsible for it because of the way I'm thinking. Once you do that, you will start changing your outer world. You will start thinking in ways that has your outer world starting to align with what it is that you're thinking and feeling. It can't help it. Like, it's just like you send out the energy and the vibration out into the universe. Those parts and pieces of the universe that correlate and resonate with that vibration start coming into alignment for you, right? And that's really difficult. Like, that's why it's so important to chase excellence. It's like, it's absolutely critical that you chase excellence, and almost to the point that you avoid pleasure, because chasing the excellence is what draws it towards you. Chasing the pleasure is what draws pain, right? And that's hard for a lot of people because they're thinking, no, pleasure is the experience that I want, right? It's not. The experiences you want is the actual attempt to get there, right? That's what you want. It's the journey of going along the way. Everybody wants $1 million. Once you get it, no big deal, right? People are like, yeah, $1 million is cool. It was the journey getting to the $1 million that they really, really enjoyed, right? And that's the whole point of it all, is that everything is a manifestation of your own realities of the things that you were seeing and believing. Hey, Nada, thank you again for the $4.99. Let me see here. Thank you, Nikita. I'm sorry, Nikita, for the $4.99. So do you think there can be a class-sized economy model that works better than current collective oligarchy model? No, I don't. Okay, listen. I'm not trying to, like, knock it or anything, because there's no person, there's no system, there's no vote, there's no anything out there that is going to make it good for everybody, right? Right now, there are people who are just absolutely loving it in the economy, and there's other people who are absolutely hating it. So is it a good economy? I mean, is it a good economy for this person, or and that not that person? So what are you going to do to adjust it to make it good for this person? And I mean, I guess that person doesn't matter. Like, how do you do that? You can't, right? There is no adjusting to create an economy that is going to be a benefit for everybody. Like, it doesn't work like that. It's much better to understand it. These are the market conditions. These are the economic conditions. These are the economic forces at play. And this is how I'm going to position myself in order to deal with those things. No, I do not believe that there is an economic model that will be good or stable or beneficial or anything for everybody all the time. It will not be that way. I think there's basically two ways that it can go about it. You either have one of expansion through the ability to do transactions, or you have contraction because that ability to do transactions has dissipated, right? That's it. And then the industriousness of us as an individual and what it is that we do then starts to interact with that ability. Those big, giant, evil corporations and people and stuff like that never would have existed if it wasn't allowed to take place through the debt issuance and the transactions that everybody wanted to do. If you want to go back to a gold standard, suffer in the consequences of having massive, like, old people on the streets because Social Security no longer flows to them, then that's going to be a whole other problem that you're going to have to face. But you know what? Prices will be pretty stable. Just saying, we won't have inflation. I mean, so there's the benefit of that. So it's not, there's no economic condition that will ever be awesome for everybody all the time. And so it's no point in even trying to think of one, like, or even theorize on one. It's like history, other than using those tally sticks, that there was a stable economy, because after the tally sticks and the ending of the, basically the ending of the gold standard, what we experienced after that, I mean, think about what the availability of debt actually does for somebody, okay? If you have a business, let's take the business scenario again, like my wife with the cleaning operation. Like, we talked about that a little earlier. She has this cleaning operation, has all these people, but now all these people ran out of money because she hoarded all the gold, right? Now, let's just say it was the debt-based currency that we were existing in to begin with, right? Not only is her talent of being able to acquire the customers that she did, right, now allows her to have a business, but then she can go and borrow money to expand upon her idea of a business and provide even more usefulness to even more people because she had access to capital that she typically wouldn't have. Now, that would exist regardless of the debt-based currency or the hard currency, right? That would exist no matter what. The chances of it being a prevalent system in which that everybody would have a shot at doing that would be very limited, right? You would have to be very talented, you would have to prove your case, and you would pay a very high interest rate if it wasn't a debt-based currency. Hard currency would be high interest rate, it would be, stiff competition, It would be very difficult to try and make it happen in the same fashion, right? So now that's like the major difference of it, right? If you have free or easy access to debt, then all the good ideas that everybody has out there can then flourish, and the ones that suck fail, right? And they're okay with that because all the flourishing businesses do so well, and we end up with these giant corporations like we do. Good or bad thing? I don't know. Whatever. I mean, it's just like, to me, it's not a good or bad thing. It's just an is. It's just, that's the way it is. If you didn't have the debt, then you wouldn't have all that expansion to the way to the level it did. It just wouldn't have happened, right? So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Probably we wouldn't have had as much population. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, right? Probably we wouldn't have had some of the awesome innovations that we have experienced through everything from medical to transportation to communication to all this stuff. May never have had any of that stuff if it wasn't for the debt-based currency. I'm just saying, like, I mean, good or bad, I don't know. I mean, it's just an is. It's just the way it is. Thanks again, Nikita. Yeah, thank you very much for it. I mean, I really appreciate it. And again, like, I hope, like, I hope I don't come off sounding, abrasive or anything, because I'm not trying to be that way. It's just, but I do see, like, a lot of times people are almost desperate for an answer, right? They're like literally like desperate for an answer, right? Like a fix to the system. And to me, like, I was looking for that. That's why I was so heavily involved in politics and stuff like that. I was looking for that fix. I wanted a better life. I wanted a better life for my children. I wanted to make sure that I established it and all that other stuff. And I realized I can't rely on other people. Like, that ain't gonna work. Those people they constantly disappoint me. I can't rely on other people like that anymore, right? I put my expectations out there and it fails every time and it smashes me in the face. I can't put my expectations out there. I have to have the expectations in here, right? This is where the things need to change. This is what I need to fix. And if I fix these things, then all that stuff doesn't matter, right? Because I don't have any expectations of any of that stuff out there. You hire somebody, you have expectations. You hire a president, I have expectations. I don't have any expectations. He's the president, whatever. I don't, like, he's going to do his job, and I don't have any expectations of him, so I don't listen to him, right? That's what I mean, and I won't listen to the next president either, because I don't have any expectations of him. I don't expect him to do anything that's going to make my life better. At all. Like, I will do that. I will see what you have done, and I'm going to do my best to deal with that. Don't send us to war. Don't bring the war here either. One man does not have all the power. That's right. One man does have all the power. You have all the power of you. You have all that power, right? And most people don't realize that. They suffer under the consequences of not believing they have all the power. Okay? I do not stand under authority, right? I mean, I kind of do, but if they were trying to enforce their authority upon me, I don't stand under authority, right? I'm responsible with my constitutional rights, whatever that's supposed to mean, I mean, basically it means that I never have to do anything with them. That to me is being responsible with them, which I think is great, It's just a matter of conducting yourself in the most appropriate ways. All right, one does not, okay. Wet harvest and cold winter make for high propane and natural gas. Natural gas is extremely low right now. Back to natural gas. I am small business loan officer. I finance SMBs for years. My heart wants more people to prosper, regular people, not landlords, investors, or money managers, normal working folk. I know. Hey, I do too, right? But I don't think that the condition of the environment or the economy right now is going to be one in which that those people are going to have a legitimate way of getting into a house from the old school methods that we had once known. If you are not following the advices of guys like Lumberjack Landlord and Dion and Mike and, the other crew, and the rest of the crew, then you're going to end up like in a painful experience because the condition has changed. Like, there was a time when we could have built our own home, right? Like, I could have had a plot of land somewhere and pieced together my own home. That's no longer available. Like, even if I wanted to, it's not really, like, in the way that homes are built nowadays, meeting the codes and the speed in which that they need to be completed. It's not really something that can be pieced together over the course of 4 or 5, 6 months, a year, or whatever. I mean, they can be, but it's not That's not even remotely typical. That, very few homes are built like that. You go back to like prior to the 80s, there are all kinds of people who would do that. I mean, I don't know how many stories I would hear of people who would talk about how their dad or their grandfather built their house that they lived in. Like literally him and his dad and his uncle built their house. And you just don't hear that anymore. Not like, I mean, you do, but it's very rare. And that's one of the things that has limited the amount of, in my opinion, has limited the amount of inventory out there that now has regular folk in a position in which that they can't buy a house. Well, guess what? Lumberjack landlord can, and he can provide a good quality place for people to live and give them the experience that they are looking for. If they can't buy a house, they're going to have to rent one. All right? And that's all there is to it. And if you have, I mean, this isn't the first time. There was a time in this country when not a lot of people own their home, right? I mean, even like in China, I think the people, like more people are homeowners there. So like, I mean, it's just like, or owner occupied homes, it's just like, it's just the way it is. It's not like, you can't change it. I mean, I guess you could probably change some like code laws and, like the efficiencies and stuff like that for a house and make them like more like shack-like dwellings like they once were, the inefficient and cheaply, or maybe not cheaply built, but, less intensive, but, and then you end up with a lesser quality house, right? All right. I have a house in Asia with no mortgage. Should I rent my house in this country and have someone pay my mortgage while I live overseas and save money? I don't know. I mean, do you want the cash flow? That's what it's all about, right? It's getting the cash flow in. Let's see. Thanks. All nighter property in Florida. Okay, you guys are talking there. You cruise down. I think I'm probably. Oh gosh, look how far away on the comments. My gosh. Okay, I'm gonna cruise back down to the bottom here. All right. Do you have any idea how inspiring you are, Simon? Thank you, Brody. I'm trying to inspire myself. I mean, just to kind of get going here. But thank you, man. Like, well, there was a time in my life nobody would have ever said that to me, and you got to change. You got to, like, if you're not doing well, man, if you're not making the right decisions, if you're chasing, if you're pleasure seeking, if you're not chasing excellence, those are the problems. It's not them. It's not, anything else going on out there. It's literally you. You are the problem. You are your own problem. No matter how much you believe that it's somebody else's actions, it was because of the expectations upon that. And now I know everybody has different circumstances, and there is some very catastrophic things that happen to people that was far beyond their control. But for the most part, most people are going to be putting themselves in the position of misery that they are now facing. Okay? And once you understand that, once you know that you did it for yourself, you accept that of yourself, then you can say, okay, I know what it was. It was those pleasure-seeking things that was causing the problems, and now I'm seeking excellence. I enjoy the ride. I love the ride. Every day is just another awesome experience. It's super fearful and unknown, and always magic always happens every time I face that. Once you start experiencing those things, you just find that more and more things start to line up to start bringing you the things that are more in line with the things that you have been thinking about that are good in your life, right? If you sit around thinking about how bad and horrible other things are in your life, then that's what you're going to experience. I know, because that's what I did. I did that exact thing. And so just understanding that mind shift is really the key to a lot of it. It's just understanding, think about what it is you're thinking about. That's true. It does depend on the goods and service available. Demographic play a big role in that. I wonder what you guys are talking about. All right. Hi, everyone. All right. Okay, guys. I'm running out of power on my phone, and we are getting now towards the end of this live stream, 2 hours and 43 minutes into it. I thank you all for being here. I can't believe we have 241 people still watching, 360 likes. Got those awesome super chats, $23.96 and $23.96. There we go. and super chats. You guys are always so supportive of the channel. You know, we covered a lot of great topics, I think, today. You know, these are great conversations that we have. And if you're really enjoying these, we dive into some really deep topics into the membership part of this channel. It's $1 a month. You know, it's really just $1 to you, but it's everything to me. I put a lot of work and effort into bringing some good content to those live streams, those membership only live streams. We really break down those topics and, you know, to make a better understanding for our future. And so I really encourage everybody to join the channel and support the Uneducated Economist and, you know, dive into those conversations. Real estate cash flow pays the bills, but price appreciation is how landlords get rich. I was really hoping you were going to read Brody's extremely tactful question. What is it? Let me go back there and find it. Do you have any idea how inspiring you are, Simon? Is that the one? Where's Brody? Is Brody up there anymore? I can't find it. God, you guys, so many comments in here. My gosh, I don't even catch a fraction of them. All right, Simon, you are literally changing my mind in life as I say this as an economics PhD and multinational citizen and businessman. Love. Right on, man. You know, thank you. That's all I can say. I've had a lot of people tell me that, you know, it's just like, not only like especially when it came to the lumber industry, when I put out all those lumber videos and people who were postponing projects or expediting the projects quickly to get the material before it became, you know, in short supply, you know, like people told me like, dude, you saved me so much, you know, whether it was like time or money or just like everything. And I'm like, hey, I was just, you know, I was just calling it as it is. You know, I was just seeing it and I was just calling it out. I'm glad the information was really helpful to you. But it was like, you know, it's really touching when it happened. Like I had a guy come up and he was like so thankful. He says, dude, you saved my family $27,000. He says, you don't understand. Like we needed a roof repair and we watched your videos and we postponed it. We had some friends like temporarily patched the roof so that we could get through, but we postponed the entire project even though we were desperate to have it done because we watched your videos and believed that we were going to get a better deal on it in the future. And dude, we did. We got like literally it was a $27,000 difference. And when he was shaking my hand, you could see he was almost tearing up about it, right? And I'm like, you know, I was taken back. I didn't even know how to handle it. I was just like, yeah, man, you're totally welcome. You know, I mean, and he was just like, no, you don't understand. Like, thank you, you know? And I mean, I get it. Like, but I didn't think that would happen. Like, I didn't know that would be like something that I would get from it. People have come up and this is like, dude, I don't know anything about lumber, but your story about alcohol and giving up, you know, being an alcoholic and giving it up and changing your life. He says, I haven't drank in months. He says, I heard your story and I quit, right? I've had people come back to me and like years later and says, dude, I'm still sober because of your story and your, you know, inspiring me to quit. That, like, even talking about that right now gives me chills, right? Like that right there, those stories by far exceed anything that has ever happened. Even getting the house and all the other stuff, to know that, you know, people's lives have been changed by me coming out here and putting this video together is just like, it was something that I never thought would ever take place, that I would, you know, or that it would occur, you know, but yet here it is, and it's happens kind of frequently, you know. And I'm thinking, man, it's touching, it's hard, it's like it's almost difficult, you know, to have that, like, to know that it was to that level of you know, change in their life, you know. And it's, you know, it's like I don't feel like I did anything. Like I just, you know, share my story, you know, and to share my experience. That's all I did, you know. I didn't do anything, you know. And I guess, I don't know, you know. Extra special stream. Thanks everyone. Your comments make the show. It really does. Like, I think, you know, it's really funny because I feel like I'm just kind of out here just babbling, and it's really you guys are like sitting around having your own conversation, and then, like, you know, Uneducated Economist is in the back now. What are y'all talking about? Oh no, it's just going off about something. Anyway, that's really the way I feel about it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, I echo the sentiment. You changed my life. Thank you, Brody. I mean, you know, I appreciate this, you guys. I mean, I don't, I know that I hear it, but like, I mean, really, I don't, I think the bigger one, you guys changed my life. Like, I think that's really what happened. You know, you guys changed my life, and I can't thank you enough for it. Like, I know my family can't thank you enough. If, like, I think the parallels that I could have been on, you know, there's a million parallels, right? Every moment's a new you, every moment's a different parallel, right? And I could have been on that parallel where I was still drunk, still broke, still trying to struggle. Might have even not had a family and been on the streets right now. I mean, I think I might have been heading that way. Like, I really do. This is a whole different parallel, like, completely different, you know, and one that I can't believe the shift was so dramatic, you know? Like, once you get off that one, you move on to another one. It's a completely different world. Like, literally, you know? It's every moment's a new you and every moment's a new parallel. Like, everything's a different one. Me sitting right here, raising my arm up, that was a different parallel, right? Than one just sitting here not doing it. It's everything, you know? And that's really where, like, this whole expanding your consciousness thing. See, I couldn't figure it out. I wouldn't have ever thought about this stuff before if it didn't happen to me, right? And not knowing why it happened to me and having to, like, look back and think about what it is that I was going on in my life that actually got me to where it was. And it was literally what I was thinking changed the realities of my world. You know, it didn't really come from anything else. It just came from from what was going on in my head. Sweet, I got to talk to my daughter, and the stream is still going. Right on. All right. Better have some Bitcoin. I have Bitcoin. What's your favorite way to relax? Wow. Man, I should think about that more. I don't know. I guess the only time I ever feel like I'm really out of, like, my head and just kind of chilling out is probably when I'm doing bingo. Even though it's working, like, that's like kind of a cool social hour, and even though it's working, I do feel like that's a bit of like a tension reliever in a way. But other than that, I like to sit by the river. I like to sit on those benches by the river and just chill out there and just sit there and look out at the water or the beach. But those are probably the two locations that I would probably feel the most relaxed. You know, is either by the river or out at the beach or something like that, staring out at the water, staring out at the horizon. All right. Oh, you're gonna hit me with super chats to keep me from leaving. I need to slide this over. It's getting. Yeah, I gotta get it out of the sun there. All right. Thank you very much, Average Joe. So I make currently 32,000 after taxes a month, and I've got a car loan for about 17, 18,000, and I've got 13,000 saved up. Fastest way to get out of the loan. Fastest way to get out of the loan. I make currently 32,000 or 3,200 after taxes a month. I've got a car. 17, 18,000, and I've got saved up. Fastest way to get out of debt. Well, I don't know. The fastest way to get out of debt, if you don't increase your income, is to cut your expenses, right? So, I mean, those are the only two ways to come up with more money, and then you have to pay your debt off first, right? And that's just all there is to it. Depending on the interest rate you got on your car, like, my wife, her car loan is like, I don't know, 3% interest or something on it. It's something super, super. I don't even think it's that high. I think it's even less than that. Anyway, it's something really, really low. And I remember, like, the interest payments on it, I'm like, do not pay this car off early. Do not. Like, the interest payment on it is like, I don't know, just it's like a few bucks. It's like it's hardly anything. She's making almost principal payments anyway. So if you have a car loan with a really, really low interest rate to it, then I wouldn't say getting out of debt would probably be the smarter thing to do. I mean, getting out of debt is always smart, right? I mean, be out of debt first, regardless. But if it's a really low interest rate and you can deploy that money into something that's going to have a higher return to it, then I would say do something like that instead and just make the car payments. But other than that, just like, I mean, when I was trying to figure out what I needed to do to invest, right? I'm broke. I got a little bit of money. I want to, invest and make money and be rich and get out of debt, right? And I'm listening to this investor, and he was just like, if you're in debt, there's no better investment that you could possibly do than to pay off your debt, right? Because you have to earn an interest well beyond the interest that you're paying on your debt. So most likely, if it's a high interest payment, it's going to be so much more return on your money to just pay that debt off early than it is to try and acquire a return on that money that's beyond the interest payment that you're making on your debt, right? So paying off debt is by far the best investment that you can do. But again, if it's a low interest rate and you have the capabilities to move it into something higher, then I would do that. But other than that, just beef up the payments and pay it off. That's it, guys. My phone's about ready to die. I can't even read the comments anymore. But I appreciate you all being out here. This was a super long live stream. I think we had some really good productive talks here. I know the conversation within the comment section was far beyond what I know what was taking place. So anyway, I can't even see my phone anymore. I can kind of see where the X is that I need to turn off the screen. I really appreciate all the super chats. You guys are so awesome. Thank you for being here. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.